Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the Listenercast.
It's us.
It's us. I'm Whitney.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the Listenercast.
It sure is.
This is going to be episode 2, part 2 of The Way of Kings. Very exciting. I personally, before we get started, want to say a really big thank you to everyone that has checked out our podcast so far.
Yes.
Had a lot of people that we don't know see the podcast, which is really cool. So we're really excited about that. We're very thankful for the reception so far and some of the feedback we've gotten and everything. Just thanks for listening. Making my heart full.
Yeah. Me and Whitney, I don't think I've ever done anything like this, so it's been very nice seeing all the support and everything. Because we said it at the end of the day, this is just for us and everything, but it's kind of cool that there's a lot of people who are enjoying this and us.
We're excited about it.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Thank you.
Now we're gonna read part 2 of The Way of Kings. Yippee.
All right. So before,
and as per usual, we'll yap at the end.
Yeah, we'll yap at the end.
Did you want to start with the interludes, or did you want to go straight into part 2?
We'll do the interludes and everything, because I don't feel like there's much to talk about. They're pretty straightforward for the most part.
Yeah, I only marked a couple things in the interludes.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So I got some more summaries. A lot more just basic than the last episodes, just to keep it moving. All right. Interlude 1, Ishik. We see a man called Ishik, who is a fisherman of the Clear Lake.
Pure Lake.
He is making his way to meet 3 men, and these men have hired him to be on the lookout for a man called Hoyd.
Hoyd.
It's
also the Pure Lake, not the Clear Lake.
Is it the Pure Lake? Oh, I did. It is the Pure Lake. It is not the Clear Lake. Anyway. So, yeah.
Looking for Hoyd.
Who
is he?
I don't know.
I really like this interlude. This is something that, I realized as I was reading part 2, I think is where, on my first read, is where I actually started to absorb this book, because there was so many scenes in part 2 that I remembered a lot more vividly than stuff what I did with part 1. Yeah.
I've always so I really like Ishik as a character, even though this isn't a spoiler. We don't really see him ever again, right?
Not that I can remember.
Yeah.
He might come up. I don't know. I feel like there's another scene at the Pure Lake.
That he's there? Okay.
Maybe.
Gotcha.
I can say there's another scene at the Pure Lake that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Ishik is present.
Okay. So with Ishik, I like that we get to see his mindset and how, he's kind of weird, but everything that he says is presented to you in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
Biggest chiller in the book, and it's awesome.
I like that he said he didn't bother wondering why they were looking for this Hoyd, whoever he was. Foreigners were always looking for things that they couldn't have.
Yeah.
And he's like, Ishik sat back, dangling his toes in the water. That felt good.
Yeah. And he's meeting these 3 men who are involved with something called the... Did they actually say it?
I don't think that they say it here.
They don't say it.
Because he literally says, I don't know why they're looking for this Hoyd.
Right, okay.
Didn't care to ask.
Did not care to ask, okay. Yeah, anyway, these 3 guys, we know they're involved with something greater, even more so than the Stormlight Archive and everything, and we don't find out. It's never told to us.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to infer that through reading this series and all the rest of the series and everything, and that's just grander Cosmere stuff. And if you're not into that, that's totally fine. But if you are, this is like, whoa, big moment type stuff.
Big moment.
Yeah.
And these three actually are brought back up in like one of the most recent readings Brandon did of Wind and Truth.
Yeah. And
or the one he read at Dragonsteel, actually.
It was the one that he brought at Dragonsteel. And I think he has read that more, right? Like,
I don't know. I don't know. I honestly haven't really been keeping up with it.
Yeah, same. I just always assumed it was the same like reading that he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that it's like online, and he's like, I think he's like done a video of him just sitting and reading it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that reading confirms their identities and everything, and which people had been theorizing and saying who they were like for years now and everything, just through like clues and stuff.
Yeah,
but that's cool. It's neat. Interlude 2, Non-Balat. Shallan's brother is shown terrorizing small crabs and hanging out with his pet axe hound. He's thinking about Shallan and their plan to steal Yasna's soulcaster.
he sure is.
This
Dude's kind of crazy.
That was literally my note was, so Non-Balat is a psycho.
No, literally. Isn't it? Is it psychopath or sociopath? Where like, I don't know. I've listened to a lot of true crime in my life where like there's like the 3 signs of like someone being.
It's a psychopath.
Is it psychopath? Like, yeah, where it's like, torturing animals at a young age and stuff.
Yeah, torturing animals, being obsessed with fire, something else.
Yeah. Regardless, this is what that makes me think of.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally a psychopath.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, he's like sitting there like pulling legs off of chulls and stuff. Or not the chulls.
Like little crabs and kremlings and all this.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a lot of notes for that and everything.
I didn't either.
I thought it was cool that we kind of like got to go back to Shallan's brother, just a person that we've heard about, but other than that,
it's cool to get like a little piece of her family.
Excuse me.
It's cool to see like a little piece of her family for sure.
Yeah. Other than that, nothing much else to say.
Yeah. And then Interlude 3. Seth Zansanvillano.
There he is. Okay. Interlude 3. Zeth is shown now belonging to a random traveling man named Took. Zeth reminisces on how he got here after being the assassin in white, and also we are let in on his oath stone and what binds him to his master. Him and his master, Took, leave the bar they are in, and Took is killed by another footman, and Zeth is once again traded away.
Yeah, I think we get a lot of really cool lore stuff in this chapter. Not a ton, but like just the fact that you get to understand more of the rules of the way Seth like works, I guess, like where he has to, whoever owns him has to have the oath stone, and then also knowing like he can't like be ordered to like kill himself or can't give away his blade.
Right. And I don't know. I just think it's kind of interesting that this is not the first master after the Parshendi and everything. Like, he just keeps getting, like, handed off, or I guess in this case, taken from people and everything. And was it also in this one that he just kind of, like, stood there with his oath stone after the Parshendi, just waiting for somebody to come by?
I don't think we saw that in this one. Because, like, the way that it ends in, like, the prologue or prelude, whatever it was.
Yeah.
He just, like, writes Gavilar's last words and then walks away.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I guess he probably, in that circumstance, went back to the Parshendi and they were like, we're done with you.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Okay. All right. Let's move on then to officially part 2.
The Illuminating Storms. And this is where we meet Dalinar and Adolin. Do you have a comment?
The goats. The goats.
I I feel like there's not very many characters that I dislike in these books.
No.
But the ones that I do, I still kind of like because they're well written.
Oh, yeah. Which...
You know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
We'll get there eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
Chapter 12.
Chapter 12.
Unity.
Mm-hmm. A new perspective. Adolin is the son of Dalinar Kholin, the uncle of the king. They are accompanying the king and other high princes to a great shell hunt. It's revealed that Adolin has a disdain for High Prince Sadeas, and that he is concerned for his father, who has been having visions/episodes whenever a high storm occurs. After reaching their destination and getting set up, a chasmfiend appears and things go awry.
I'd say that's pretty accurate, yeah.
Yeah. So, this is, number one, a new perspective, but it's also two perspectives. It's like a split perspective between Adolin and Dalinar,
Yeah.
And that I think is really cool. It's something different completely from part one. That doesn't really happen, I don't believe. And I think that just is to emphasize how connected the two are in each other's stories and everything.
Yeah. Because you actually do see it, like the split perspective, quite a bit in this chapter, or in this part. Because there was another chapter I was reading like last night that was kind of the same, where it was like you get some Dalinar and then some Adolin.
Yeah. Some of my notes. This is kind of a breath of fresh air in regards to the last part. Part one was pretty heavy in regards to like Kaladin and the Shattered Plains in all. With this part, you kind of get to see that other side of the Shattered Plains, involving the Light Eyes and everything and their society, which I think is just really cool. And we get introduced to a lot more like different elements of just the setting. Yeah. And I guess the society as a whole and whatnot.
Yeah, like this is where we actually start to get into more of the political side of this book. Yeah. Which is like a huge reason that I like this series so much, is that I like the fantasy politics of it. But yeah, like you get to meet the king and see kind of the dynamic between the king and Dalinar, because obviously Elhokar is Gavilar's kid, but so Dalinar is his uncle, and so it's just interesting to see the dynamic. And like you can even tell in this first chapter where we're introduced to him that like Dalinar still doesn't really see Elhokar as like a very good king. Yeah. You like see the paranoia kind of immediately, and like you can just tell Dalinar doesn't 100% trust his judgment. Like you can tell he's like trying to be like, yeah, no, like he knows what he's doing. Like he's king, I'm gonna listen to him, whatever. But there's still times where Dalinar is like, oh my god. Yeah.
And it's like, because I know like characters have to grow up fast, like in a lot of fantasy stories, especially in this one and everything, because Elhokar is he's only in his 20s. Yeah. Which is crazy.
To be a king when you're like 23.
Yeah. Let's see, going back to like the politics and everything, so we kind of learn like about a character, Sadeas, and there's a lot of hostility towards him.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I know I reread this last year as well, but I feel like I don't remember the hostility being so immediate.
Really?
Yeah. Like, for some reason in my head, because maybe it's because there's that whole interaction where, and this is in this part, so it's not really a spoiler. Yeah. But where Dalinar's in that vision, and the guy, like, tells him, like, to trust Sadeas. The voice tells him to trust him. And so I don't know, maybe if, like, in my head I got a little convoluted of, like, oh no, Sadeas is fine, like we're supposed to trust him. Like I don't remember it being so hostile immediately. Yeah. So that's what, when I was like reading this back, I was like, oh my god, I didn't realize we hated Sadeas like immediately.
Oh yeah. More involved with like the politics of everything. Gem hearts. Yeah. We learn why they hunt these chasmfiends and everything. And it's for these gem hearts. And that's literally what they're doing right now, is they're going on a hunt with the king and everything. which is pretty crazy because these are giant monsters that they're just like hunting for fun. But like they got big old jewels in them, like a big old ball.
Yeah.
Of just like what is it, like just precious?
It's precious gem.
Yeah.
That's
really
worth
cool.
a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Other things we learn in this chapter, we learn about Rashadiums.
Mm-hmm.
Really big horses that are also really smart.
Really big horses.
They're really big horses that are really smart. They're able to carry shard bearers and everything. Dalinar is having these visions. Specifically one that is saying, unite them.
Yeah.
He goes back and forth trying to figure out what that means and everything. You know, we'll find out what that means and whatnot. But, you know, crazy that this guy who Dalinar, like, is our straight man, I would say, right?
Yeah.
He's the one that's level-headed. He's, you know, logical about stuff. Our straight man is also maybe crazy.
Maybe crazy. And, like, is really trying to follow the legacy of his brother.
Yeah.
Which is, like, maybe making him crazy.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's trying to help his brother's son. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like, he's trying to emulate, like, what Gavilar was, like, preaching, I guess, at the end of his life, and, like, things that he was, like, getting involved in and being like, oh, we need to unite Alethkar and all this other stuff. I don't know. It's a lot.
Yeah, because, like, one of the, like, the last thing that Gavilar said to Dalinar was, like, follow the codes and everything, and he, like, since then, he's been following the codes.
Yeah.
So,
and even though a lot of people don't think or don't really follow them as strictly as they do, and, like, even see that in, like, the fashion and, like, the fact that Dalinar always has Adolin, like, dressed in some sort of uniform in case something happens.
Yeah.
Like, it's all very purposeful, and, like, only having, like, one glass of wine that would be intoxicating, and yeah.
I love the dynamic between Adolin and Dalinar, because it's like it's Dalinar dealing with his, like, I know he's not a teenager, he's like early 20s, but like he's dealing with his teenage son.
Yeah.
That, like, is just like, oh, this old man, like, I love him, but, like, you know, we can't keep doing these things and everything because they're not helping us. But Dalinar, like, I mean, you know, they have, like, a good back and forth and everything. And I think it's very important that we see that they do love each other. Not just those two. Also Renarin as well.
Yeah.
We've not touched on Renarin.
We have not talked about Renarin yet.
Would you like to talk about Renarin, Whitney?
I mean, I think we can talk about him in the next chapter.
Okay.
Because he does something kind of silly.
He does something kind of silly. But do you know who else we meet in this chapter?
Do we meet King's Wit here?
We meet Wit.
Yeah.
Wit. We meet Wit.
Wit.
Yeah.
That's me.
That's you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay.
Chapter 13.
Chapter 13.
10 heartbeats.
Dalinar, Adolin, and the others fight off the chasmfiend and are all around cool guys.
That's your whole description.
That is my whole description. Am I wrong?
That's awesome, Ryan.
Am I wrong?
Nah, you're right.
No.
They're cool guys.
They're cool guys.
Yeah, so Chasmfiend jumps out of the chasm. Not really. It says he rose out of the chasm on a thick, chitinous legs. That's on the last page of the other chapter. But yeah, so traditionally when you're doing a chasmfiend hunt, you hunt it from a distance. And all of a sudden, it is directly in front of the king.
Yep.
And in front of all these people that were, like, getting set up just to lounge and watch as this happened. Yeah. And then the chasmfiend said, psych, here I am.
Yep.
And now I'm going to murder all of you.
Yeah. Dalinar does the coolest thing ever. he catches the chasmfiend's claw in between his own hands and everything.
Oh, yeah, because he's in the shard plate, so he has, like, superhuman strength, which is also where you see kind of... You learn more about the actual shard plate and the shard blades in this chapter.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that the shard blades can cut through, like, the chitin of the chasmfiend. Yeah. I really was struggling for that word for a second. But also the fact that, like, I mean... Is it Renarin that gets, like... Who gets swiped by it? Is it the king or is it Renarin?
I believe it's the king,
I think it is, too. I think it is because I think that's when the saddle breaks. And then or I don't know. Hold on.
Yeah. Un memento. No, the saddle breaks, I think, on his way in.
Yeah.
And everything.
Regardless, somebody gets... While we're looking for it, somebody in Shardplate gets, like, swiped by this giant creature that's made of, like, stone, essentially. Like, that's what the chitin feels like. And just, like, comes back with, like, the armor a little bit, like, cracked. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's, like, cracked, so it's, like, obviously not in the best shape, but it's still... If a person had not been wearing Shardplate, if they'd been in regular armor or had been completely, like, not covered, like, they would have died.
I don't.
We might find it as we go along here. Because, I mean, like, I have a ton of stuff marked in this chapter, actually.
Oh, do you really?
Not a ton, but... Like 3 things.
Oh, that's a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a good moment between Dalinar and Sadeas and everything, where the king, like, goes up and he's, like, going to fight this thing, like, and he's in plate and everything, but I mean, like, he's the king.
Yeah.
And whatnot, and, like, they want to protect him. And like, Dalinar is trying to get to the king, and he's, like, not going to make it and everything, but then a giant, like, arrow pierces the chasmfiend and everything, and he looks back, and it's Sadeas.
Yeah.
And they both, like, acknowledge each other and whatnot.
Yeah.
So there's, like, you see that respect between them. Like, they do not like each other, but they respect each other.
They respect each other because they both have to protect Elhokar.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what happened or has happened between them. At the end of the day, they have a duty to protect their king.
Right.
Yeah, so something I marked here, which is where we learn more about the shard plate. It's, like, right when it starts, and Dalinar's telling Elhokar, like, you know, wait until Adolin and I weaken it. And it talks about the helm of the shard plate closing and the sides, like, misting. And I don't think I ever realized this intricacy of it, where, like, the part where your eyes are, like, it turns to a mist so you can still see out of the helm, but, like, your eyes are protected. Like, I think in my head the whole time it's just been normal, like, armor where, like, you still have, like, an eye slit. Yeah. But, like, I didn't realize you were actually protected, and it just, like, became translucent.
Yeah, it still has the eye slits and everything. Like, there's nothing there, but it is, like, translucent around it. And
yeah, because it says you still needed the eye slit. Looking through the sides was like looking through dirty glass, but the translucence was one of the most wonderful parts of shard plate. Yeah. So you still, like with normal armor, I'm imagining, I've never had armor on before. Like, if you just had the eye slits, like, all of your peripheral vision would be so blocked. But having that translucence, like, even if it is looking, like, through dirty glass, like they said, you could still see. Helps, yeah. Which is a fun intricacy of shard plate that I liked. And we also see later in the vision that Dalinar has when the Radiants are there, and he's, like, their helms, like, appear and disappear. Yes. Yeah. Right. So I just think that's, like, kind of interesting and something to just see and be like, oh, that's strange. Or it's just a cool intricacy of the armor, I suppose. It's
also a good moment because Adolin recognizes, like, oh, my dad still got it. Yeah. My dad still got it. He's cool.
He's a cool guy.
Yeah, because he's, like, a good chunk of, like, the chapter before was, like, saying, like, oh, my dad, like, he's kind of...
He's losing his touch. Like, that used to be the Blackthorn. Like, he was the one that would fight. You know, it doesn't matter what was going on. He was he was going to argue.
Yeah.
He was not going to argue, but he was going to pull a sword out and kill you.
Yeah. So touching on Renarin. Renarin, he tries and comes to help, but Dalinar sends him away because he's unarmed, he's not in armor and everything. And I think that's just like, you kind of get to see like Renarin wants to be something greater and everything, but as like we see later on, that he is treated as not.
Yeah. Because of his blood weakness is what they call it. But I think he wants to be something greater, but I kind of go between like, he wants to be something greater to impress his father.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I think he genuinely wants.
I agree.
Yeah. We'll touch on that in like 2 books from now.
Yeah. Yeah, literally. Did you, just kind of pausing, did you watch that recent Q&A with
I did not.
Brandon? Okay.
No.
Do you want me to touch on it? Or?
If you want to, yeah.
So there was somebody who asked in a recent Q&A that was at C2E2 asking about more Renarin. And Brandon said, like, in book 5, we will get the most Renarin we have ever seen. And he says he will not be a main character.
Yeah.
He says that will come more with books 6 through 10, where he will become like a main character, but it will be the most Renarin that we have ever seen.
We're not going to get those books for 10 years.
Shh, don't say that. Who knows? Maybe he'll just be like, oh, I gotta actually do it faster.
Secret projects.
Yeah.
And it's actually book 6 through 10 of the Stormlight Archives.
That'd be nuts. And will never happen.
No, absolutely not.
But they also talk about that Renarin is on the spectrum.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. Aww.
Yeah. So...
my heart.
Yeah, but it was very, very interesting just because we see a good bit of Renarin, but not as much as we probably like. We still don't know a lot about him. Not really, no.
Yeah. I say we learned the most about him in like the last 2 books.
Yeah.
Or current last 2 books, like Oathbringer and Rhythm of War.
I think we're done with this. Are you done?
One thing I have marked here is that when Dalinar drops the blade, it disappears.
Yeah.
Which is like a fun thing that we learn about the shard blades and stuff, that like that's an easy way that it can't be taken by like your enemies.
Yeah.
Is by like if it leaves your hand, it's gone.
Yeah, it like because it has to like bond to you and everything.
Yeah.
It also takes, I don't know, did we touch on it? It takes 10 heartbeats to summon it.
Yes. Which I think is interesting because they even say if like your heart rate is higher, it takes less time because like your heart's beating faster.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, it takes the full like 10 seconds or whatever it takes for your heart to beat. It was Adolin who gets cracked by the chasmfiend. I actually have it marked right here. So
gotcha.
Yeah. Let's see. His plate didn't shatter, thank the heralds, but the breastplate inside cracked widely, leaking trails of white smoke. I don't know what that means. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and it's also, like I already said earlier, it's cool to see that, like, you can be hit by a giant creature and live.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the rest of the chapter is them fighting off the chasmfiend to make sure the Elokar stays alive.
Yep. And they do it. And Dalinar catches the big claw, and he's so awesome and epic, and I love him. And I wish he was my dad. And, they get the gem heart and everything, and we'll get to see the aftermath, like, later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Chapter 14.
Chapter 14. Payday. Kaladin makes all of the bridgemen line up, and he says that they are going to train for bridge runs now. However, they all blow him off and walk away, and he trains by himself in the lumber yards. He then has a much needed conversation with Syl.
I agree. Yeah, it's interesting because he's obviously trying to create some camaraderie with all these men.
Yeah.
And they are just like, man, we are not going to train. Like, our lives are already hard enough.
Yeah.
Like, why would I torture myself and make my muscles sore? Like, it's already going to happen anyways if we go on a bridge run. So he goes on and does it. I think it's really interesting how, like, exercising like this and training is a way that Kaladin kind of, like, meditates and, like, clears his head.
Yeah.
Which, like, I can attest to. Like, that's, like, whenever I do yoga, it's, like, you're focusing so much on, like, your muscles and your body movement that, like, you don't really think.
Yeah, you don't have the time to think about anything.
Yeah, and it's nice to just be like present in your own body. So I think it's interesting and makes sense that would be, especially like since he was a soldier, like that's where he finds his solace is like in training his muscles and his body. Especially like with him being a slave and like being locked up for so long and not having access to being able to just like move around like a normal person. He's trying to rebuild that muscle. And especially when you're lifting bridges, I almost said for a living. I guess technically he does get paid for it, but like when that's like your task in life is to just like lift these giant bridges, like you need muscle tone for that.
Yep. Which going on to him getting paid for it and everything. Is it he gets paid today, right? That's why it's called payday, right?
Yeah, because this is where he gets paid, and we have that whole interaction where he makes Gaz give him all the clear chips, and then he gives him the one back to be like, this is me making the statement to you that like I'm not going to go back on what I'm saying, and you better not go back on what you said. Right.
I have something marked here,
okay,
sort of when he is going and training himself. He worked himself ragged. In fact, he felt close to collapsing several times, but every time he did, he found a reserve of strength from somewhere.
And it's interesting you say that. Is this a spoiler?
No.
I think what I'm about to say might be, so I'm going to hold off.
Okay.
It's foreshadowing, I suppose. Okay, it's foreshadowing.
Okay.
Because when he goes to the apothecary, all of the chips are done.
Yes. Do you want to talk about that when we get there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel that feels spoilery to me.
I don't feel like it's spoilery. I feel like it's more of just like you just are noticing these things happen and you've read the book
right
before.
Yeah, probably. Okay.
So he'd been running for hours. Where had he found the strength? That's like on like the next page or so. And it's just like he keeps finding this reserve of energy and whatnot, even though he's literally been like working out for like hours and hours, like on end, which is like kind of crazy.
Yeah. I get on the Stairmaster for like 5 minutes and I feel like I'm gonna die.
Oh.
So I can't imagine running with a giant plank on my shoulder for several hours.
I can imagine getting on a Stairmaster.
Right.
So, good on you.
Like I said, I give about 5 minutes and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I just want to be a girl that reads at the gym so bad, and every time I just
read
am in
at
pain.
the gym.
Yeah, I've seen so many girls in the gym on a Stairmaster with like their Kindle, and they'll do it for like an hour, and I'm like, that must be so nice. I'm not there yet.
No.
I don't know if I ever will be.
Like, that's insane to me. I don't know how
I could like walk on a treadmill and read.
Yeah.
I couldn't. Yeah, I don't know. Good on them.
Good on them.
Power to them, for real.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to be just like you. Something I marked, I think like the next page over, is when we have this interaction with Syl. It's like where he like finally he stops and he's like exhausted. He's like laying on the ground. He's like just chugged water. And she says, Kaladin, I have something to tell you. She goes, this is important. And he felt a slight jolt of energy on his eyelid. It was a very strange sensation. So he like sits up and looks at her and she says, I've decided that I'm glad you kept your word to Gaz, even if he is a disgusting person. And he's like, the Spears? And she's like, yeah, I thought you might break your word, but I'm glad that you didn't. He's like, all right, thanks for telling me, I guess. And it's just, seeing the personification of Syl and seeing what she values in Kaladin.
Yeah.
You see it a lot through these next couple chapters where it's like when he does something honorable or he does like morally the right thing, she's like, I'm glad you did that.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, well, it was the right thing to do. And she's like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
Yeah. I mean, she says it on the same page, like, I'm changing. She shivered. It must have been in an intentional action for her entire figure fuzz for a moment. I know things I didn't just a few days ago. It feels so strange.
Yeah. And he says, the more you understand, the better, right? And she's like, oh, I actually marked this right here. This is where she realizes what he was doing at the honor chasm. Because she literally says, when I found you near the chasm after the high storm yesterday, you were going to kill yourself, weren't you? She said, I gave you a leaf, a poisonous leaf, and you could have used it to kill yourself or someone else. That's what you were probably planning to use it for in the first place back in the wagons. Today I know what death is. Why do I know what death is, Kaladin? Which I think is like such a small but very strong phrase for like a spren.
Yeah.
Or like just like a small creature that we've just like watched developed into like more of a person.
Yeah.
But she literally goes, why do I know what death is?
It's literally like we are witnessing an individual experience.
Like consciousness.
Consciousness for the first time.
Yeah.
And then right after that, because I have this marked, what's happening to me? What am I? I don't know. Does it matter? Shouldn't it? I don't know what I am either.
Yeah.
A bridgeman, a surgeon, a soldier, a slave. They're all just labels. Inside, I'm me. I'm a very different me than I was a year ago, but I can't worry about that. So I just keep moving and hope my feet take me where I need to go. That's like such a good, that's like, oh,
yeah.
Kaladin, that's why I say like this is a much needed conversation between the two of them, because it kind of like solidifies like from where we saw Kaladin at the end, where he's at the honor chasm and everything, and still saving him. And now they are both like relying on each other. They are building that relationship with one another.
Yeah.
And they're recognizing like, I need you, you need me. We're doing it.
Hi, buddy.
Hello, Zeus.
Want to come say hi? Come here. There's too many wires in the way. He's like, no.
That's too much effort.
But yeah, I agree. It's definitely a much needed conversation. And it just like, I think even just Kaladin saying, very different me than I was a year ago, but I can't worry about that. I just keep moving and hope my feet take me where I need to go. I think that just applies in real life. Like, it really doesn't matter who you are as long as you just keep doing what you're doing and pushing towards what you want to do and like where you're supposed to go. Mm-hmm. That's life. All right, so how do they finish this conversation?
They finish this conversation. Scared to go onward, Kaladin said, but terrified to go back to what you were. She nodded. I know how you feel. And then he says, like, you know, just come on, I need to get something to eat. You know, but like, I like that sort of, they're feeling the same way.
Yeah.
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 It's good.
Oh, it's so good.
The Decoy.
The Decoy.
Chapter 15.
Chapter 15. We find it is the aftermath of the conflict with the chasmfiend. Dalinar meets with Adolin, Elhokar, and Sadeas, and others on the plateaus, and things become more contentious between all parties. We learn more about these characters and their past relationships with one another through their interactions.
We sure do.
Uh-huh.
All right. So they're still on the plateau at this point. And they're cleaning up from the chasmfiend hunt. I have something marked on about our third page into this chapter here. Dalinar leaves Adolin to make his report, and he walks up to the chasmfiend's carcass. It says it lay slumped over on its side, eyes burned out, mouth lying open, which we obviously see in the chapter where they're fighting it, that Dalinar like lands a blow that will like kill it with the shard blade.
Yeah. So
it's just interesting to see, because we hear obviously in the prologue when Seth like cuts through people, it just makes their eyes like burn out. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting that the Shard Blade will even do that to a creature of the size of a chasmfiend.
Yeah.
That's my comment.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's just it was really interesting to me that I was like, oh yeah, so like it'll do that to a man, but it will also do that to like a monster, essentially.
Which is basically, I guess, indicative that it will do that to anything living.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had something marked here, and we learned some information about Dalinar. It's basically Dalinar remarking about Adolin, and he has a mixture of blonde and black hair. And I'm just going to summarize this. Basically, he just kind of is remarking on his son, and he speaks that the blonde comes from his wife. And he can't remember her.
Right.
He calls her like a blur, literally, but she was a blur. He couldn't even remember her name. When others spoke it, it slipped from his mind like a pat of butter sliding off a too hot knife.
It's a really interesting like metaphor. I didn't even catch that one really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at this point we know that Dalinar for some reason can't remember his wife at all.
Like anything.
Nothing about her. Not even her name.
Which is wild. Like, could you imagine like somebody saying like somebody's name to you and you just...
Nothing. Someone that you loved and cared about for several years. That's scary.
That's really scary.
Because that erases like every memory that you have with them, like good and bad. It's just like gone.
And like, it makes you think like, okay, so we know that Dalinar is having these visions. And now also there's something else going on with his brain. Yeah. Where it's like he can't remember anything about this one individual and whatnot. So you're just like, okay, what's up with this guy?
Yeah, like what's wrong with him?
Yeah, what's good?
Yeah, what's good? What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you, freak? Oh, Lordy. Let's see. What notes? What notes do you have here, Whitney?
Don't have a whole lot here. We do have that whole interaction. Like Adolin says to Dalinar, like, Sadeas, he's, I don't trust him. I don't trust anything that man says. And Dalinar takes him to have that whole interaction with High Prince Vama. Yeah, sorry. So, like, Dalinar takes Adolin along for that interaction to show you, like, they're trying to go behind the king's back, and Sadeas and I, like, out of mutual respect for each other and for the king, are making sure that things like this don't happen.
Yeah.
It literally, I have it marked right here where it says, Adolin found himself baffled by Dalinar's relationship with Sadeas. Their barbs were genuine. One needed only to look in their eyes to see that the men could barely stand one another. And yet here they were, apparently planning and executing a joint manipulation of another high prince.
Yeah, which, I mean, it just goes to show you, like, there was, like, love between these two. And I feel like Dalinar wants them to get back to that level and everything, but they can't. But they're just like dancing around each other. Like they do not like each other, but it's just like they remember this history that they had, and whatnot, and they're doing this like mutual cooperation without cooperating with each other, which is really fun. It's really fun.
It's interesting that they kind of dance around each other like this, but like we talked about earlier, they have the same interest in mind of like keeping the king safe and stuff. Yeah.
And like that's literally like why they're doing this, because they both owe it to Gavilar to protect his son.
Right. Yeah. Like even as much as they hate each other, they still have that respect to Gavilar, who is a dead man.
Do you know what confrontation I really like in this?
What?
It's Adolin and Dalinar and Renarin and Elhokar, and they're all together. And Adolin starts basically like him and Sadeas are like going at it and everything, and Dalinar says like, enough. And Dalinar turned his attention to Sadeas, speaking very softly, very pointedly. Sadeas, surely I did not just hear you openly before the king call my son useless. Surely you would not say that, as such an insult would demand that I summon my blade and seek your blood.
It's so good.
It's so awesome because Dalinar, for the most part, is a pushover when it comes to Sadeas.
Mm-hmm. Because he just doesn't really want to create a conflict there. Like, it's just not worth it in his mind anymore.
Yeah. But when it comes to openly disrespecting, better word, dishonoring his family in such a way, it's like, I will go there if I need to go there.
Yeah, and it also shows that even though, like, Renarin is perceived as weak to a lot of people, and, like, maybe even to his dad, like, Dalinar is still like, you are not going to talk poorly about my son.
Absolutely.
And I love that because I feel like you do see a trope sometimes in novels, TV, just media in general, where if someone, like a child, is considered weak, the parents will just kind of be like, yeah, they suck. Mm-hmm. And Dalinar's like, why would you say that about my son?
Yeah.
He's going to do great things.
He is.
And I love that Dalinar believes in him so much.
It's great. What a good dad.
He's such a good dad.
He's such a good dad. That's why... Shut up.
He's such a good dad right now. He cares about his son.
He's always been a good dad. He always will be a good dad. He's never done anything wrong in his life.
Yeah, this chapter is also where we talk about the codes for the first time.
Yes, the codes.
Because someone says, I think, Adolin says, I didn't realize that Uncle Gavilar followed the codes. And Dalinar says, he's the one who first showed them to me. He found them as a relic of old Alethkar back when we'd first been united. He began following them shortly before he died. Those were odd days. Yalza and I weren't sure what to think of the changes in Gavilar. At the time, I thought the code's foolishness. Even the one that commanded an officer to avoid strong drink during times of war. Especially that one, because we knew he was a drunk. Then his voice grew even softer. I was unconscious on the ground when Gavilar was murdered. I can remember voices trying to wake me up, but I was too addled by my wine. I should have been there for him. Mm-hmm. So I think a big part of Dalinar following the codes is, like, obviously out of respect for his brother and trying to unite Alethkar like his brother wanted to.
Yeah.
Or was, like, trying to. But also I think the fact that he was too drunk when his brother got killed was probably a big, like, well, I should follow these codes because if I had followed them like Gavilar did, I could have helped him and he might not be dead.
Yeah. And that's immediately followed with, Dalinar saying the namesake of this chapter, the decoy. He informs Adolin that Sadeas was the decoy. Like, he was acting as the king when Szeth came to kill him and everything.
Right.
And, like, he was putting his own life in danger. He was not wearing, like, plate or anything. Mm-hmm. As far as we know, he didn't have a weapon.
Right.
And Dalinar was drunk on the floor.
Yeah.
While all this was happening. So, yeah. It's great that, like, it feels very adult way. It's a very adult way of treating things, and that's showing Adolin, like, you cannot fix all your conflicts through outright aggression,
right,
and conflict,
because that's how Dalinar used to live. So he knows that's not what solved the problem. Like, there's an interaction, I don't think it's in this chapter, I think it might be in a later one, where Sadeas and Dalinar are having another conversation, and Sadeas is making, I think this is after he starts having the visions, and Sadeas makes a comment being like, you're not the Blackthorn I used to know, like, because like, you know, you would get upset and you would just draw blood immediately. And Dalinar even says, I killed so many people for no reason. Yeah. So we'll speak on that when we get to that chapter.
Yeah,
but
we will.
I'm sure that I probably marked that in there. But like, even you see right here, like Adolin being like you said, like Dalinor's telling Adolin, like, yeah, no, violence is not always the answer. Like, you have to be level-headed about things.
He then goes on to tell Adolin that those weren't technically Gavilar's last words.
Yeah.
So from what they know and everything, they think that Gavilar could write.
Right, because it was written in his blood.
On using his finger.
Yeah.
But we know
it was Zeth.
We know it was Zeth.
But they didn't know that.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes everyone question Gavilar more, because they're like, well, writing is like a womanly thing.
Yeah.
Like, men should know how to write.
Mm-hmm. And I just think that's a really cool little tidbit that they added in there. It's just like, of course they think that. Like, because they didn't see Zeth do that. And
right.
whatnot. But good little, like, we know the answer.
Right.
Yeah. I don't have much other notes on this, Whitney. Do you?
I don't really have anything else either.
I do have the last kind of line under, like, kind of marked here. Mm-hmm. He turned his mount and clopped up onto the bridge, then nodded his thanks to the bridgemen. They were the lowest in the army, and yet they bore the weight of kings.
Right. Because he also talks about in the codes that one of the things is, like, a king should not do or should not order men to do something that he himself would not do.
No, that was when he was quoting the way of kings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that in this chapter?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he quoted to Adolin.
Yeah, so that's what... Yeah, he says it to Sadius.
Did he say it to Sadius? Oh,
I think he says it to Sadius because he's talking about, like, the bridgemen, and, like, everyone's saying, like, oh, well, it's so much faster than your chokehold bridges. Mm-hmm. And Dalinar says, yeah, but in the codes, like he was like, I wouldn't be a bridgeman. I would never put myself in that situation, because you are literally just sending men to their deaths every time you do it.
Yeah. And
so, like, he says, like, oh, in the codes, like, a king says he would not do something that would not make his men do something that he himself would not do. Mm-hmm. So I think that sentence, and this may just be my speculation personally, that sentence where he says they were the lowest in the army, yet they bore the weight of kings. It's because, like, they bear the weight of doing something that, like, their kings wouldn't even do.
Yeah.
That's my take on it anyways.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, we actually get to see the codes physically in the book, which I think is neat.
I agree.
Okay. Chapter 16, Cocoons.
Cocoons. Oh.
This is time skip. We talked about that last time, that there was a lot of time skips.
Yeah.
This one is 7.5 years ago.
Yes. It's a flashback. Okay. Another flashback into Kaladin's past. We finally meet Tien, his younger brother, as well as his childhood friend Laurel. They are exploring and hanging out together looking for lurgs when they decide to join some other local children. There's some miscommunication and rough relations between the other children. Kaladin gets into a fight with a boy named Jost and promptly loses, but it further solidifies the idea that he wants to be a soldier. When he returns home, he finds out that Bright Lord Wistio is dead and has left his father funds to send Cal to Carbranth to learn to be a soldier. Or a surgeon, not a soldier. Surgeon. Yeah, I had surgeon written there, but I just... All right.
I actually have no notes for this chapter.
I do not... Yes, I do. I have on here, just basically I have an underline where Laurel is talking to Cal after Tien shows up, and they're like talking about lurgs or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Laurel just says like, oh, your brother, he changes you.
Yeah.
Where it makes Cal, like, I guess, softer, and it shows off his more compassionate side and everything.
Yeah.
And I just really like that because I guess it's more clear to us the background on why he's so sympathetic to people, and especially people that remind him of his brother, because he was always kind and nice to his brother because it brought out this better side in him and everything.
The only thing I guess I really could say about this chapter is that, like, the first time he holds that, like, quarter staff in his hand, like you said, it validates for him that he, like, wants to be a soldier.
Yeah.
But, like, he holds it in his hand, and it is, like, quite literally a life-changing experience for him where he's like, no, this feels right. This is what I should be doing. Yeah. Which could be a conversation about, like, fate and destiny, I suppose.
Yeah. All right. You just want to move on?
Yeah, that's what I've got. And I guess we learn a little bit more about Liren and stuff here, too. Yeah. But yeah, we have another flashback with them later that I want to talk about him a little bit more.
Yes. All right.
Chapter 17. A bloody red sunset.
Kaladin goes and tries to get some medical supplies for Bridge 4, but only comes back with a fraction of what he expected. Bridge 4 then goes on a bridge run, and to Kaladin's dismay, loses men, but is able to bring back 3 wounded, something that is not allowed. Throughout the chapter, we see Kaladin's spheres are going out, ?
Yeah. So the chapter starts with him going into the apothecary trying to get supplies just for in case anybody does get wounded on the bridge runs. And the apothecary guy is kind of mean, but then once not mean, but he's like acting really frail, but then once Kaladin like acts like, it shows that Kaladin knows what he's talking about, he like kind of perks up and he's like, okay, well, I'll help you. Yeah. And they talk about knobweed and everything, and Kaladin's like, well, I've seen the plants growing out, like, outside the camp. Like, why is it so expensive and everything? And he's like, you can only get 1 drop from a weed if you're lucky. And you're just like, okay. Yeah. Because, like, he's saying it's all this stuff that Kaladin's trying to buy, like antiseptic and bandages and stuff, is, like, really expensive. Kaladin says, you surgeons all the same, or not Kaladin. The apothecary says, you surgeons all the same, never give a blink to consider where your supplies come from. You just use them like there will be no end. And Kaladin says, you can't put a price on a person's life. Which is one of his father's sayings, and it was the main reason that Liren never charged for his services. Yes. Which I like that. I do too. I do too. And this is also where he says he, like, immediately after that, brings out his 4 marks. He hesitated when he saw them. Only one was still glowing with its soft crystal light. The other 3 were dull bits of diamond barely visible at the center of the drops of glass. And he's like, you trying to pass done spears off on me? He's like, they were just, they were like, glowing this morning. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. So... It's interesting. Yeah. It's just a dun spear, whatever. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, so him and Syl, like, leave the apothecary and everything, and there's just kind of, like, noticing all the hustle and bustle around the camp and whatnot. And Syl says something that I just underlined, because I was like, yeah. Something major. I don't think. People are discord. I was just reading that, yeah. Yeah, Syl said. What does that mean? You all act differently and think differently. Nothing else is like that. Animals act alike, and all spren are, in a sense, virtually the same individual. There's harmony in that, but not in you. It seems that no 2 of you can agree on anything all the world does as it is supposed to, except for humans. Maybe that's why you are so often want to kill each other. What do you think about that? I mean, I think she's right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Kaladin even says, like, not all Windspren act alike, like, being like, well, you're proof of that. And she's like, I know, but, like, maybe you can see why it bothers me that I don't act like everyone else, because nature does, like she said, like, things in nature do act the same. Like, animals have instincts that make them do certain things, and, like, certain plants are going to grow a certain way. Like, everything has a routine to it or has some instinct, and, like, humans don't really do that. Yeah. There's no harmony. There's no harmony. Harmony? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good little pick out there.
Good little pick out.
I have something else. What did
you say?
After they go to the apothecary, this is when they get back, and then the alarm sound for the bridge run. Mm-hmm. And so they're on the bridge run. Mm-hmm. And they get up there. It's pretty bad. We see 2 people die immediately. Yeah. And then once, the bridge is down, soldiers are across, that's when Kaladin starts going back to get the wounded. And there's one scene right here where it says he dragged Dabbit away from the edge in a clumsy half crawl. He kept slipping on blood, falling, abrading his arms on the rock, hitting his face against the stone. He persisted, towing the younger man out from underneath the flying arrows. Finally, he got far enough away that he risked standing. He tried to pick up Dabbit, but his muscles were so weak. He strained and slipped, exhausted, falling into the stones. He stands up shakily, then tried to grab Dabbit. He blinks away tears of frustration, too weak to even pull the man. And then a man comes up and a voice growls, "Airsick Lowlander."
Oh, man.
I love Rock. I love Rock so much.
Rock. Talking about another big chiller in the series.
I just love everything about him. Man.
He's such a homie.
And this is like kind of where you see a turn in Rock where he's like, all right, I see this guy trying to do the right thing and I want to help. Mm-hmm. While he thinks Kaladin's stupid, he's trying to do the right thing and I'll help. And this is when he comes back to the hollow where all the bridgemen are sitting, and he was like, Kaladin says there's 4 more, we have to find them. Tef says Merc and Leighton, and Adis and Coral, they were right in the front. So we know that they died. And so they have all the bridgemen who survived. But Kaladin said, Merc is dead, the others might live, and he tried to stumble to his feet. And Rock says, idiot, stay here, is all right, I will do this thing. Guess I'm an idiot too. And then him and Teft go out on the battlefield, and that's when they bring back, who do they bring back? I think it might be Leighton. Yeah, they deposited a very bloody Leighton on the ground.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's when Kaladin, Dunny had already put the knife over the fire, and Kaladin immediately is on Leighton. He's like, you will not die, you will not die. Kaladin cleans the leg wound, because I think that was Leighton was the one that had been trampled, wasn't it? He had 2 arrows sticking from him, one in the shoulder, the other opposite arm, another grazed his stomach. It looked like his left leg had been trampled by a horse. It was broken. He had a large gash where the skin had split. Mm-hmm. Tef said the other 3 are dead. He nearly is too, and that's when Kaladin immediately goes to what is it called when you put heat on the wound? Cauterize. Yeah, to immediately cauterize it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this whole scene is very intense because to these bridgemen, or to Kaladin, it's everything that these bridgemen live. Mm-hmm. Because he's trying to do the right thing by saving them, but also he wants to, I think it's also proving a point to the other bridgemen that your life matters, even though it may not feel like it.
Exactly. Also, Hobber. Mm-hmm. He has essentially shell shock.
Yeah.
Does he call it battle fatigue or something?
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think they reference what it is until they're back in the barracks.
Yeah. But he's not talking or anything. And that's just very, I don't know, because it just kind of goes to show you that there's not just physical wounds that come from battles and everything, which is just very true for real life.
It's true to actual war, not just fantasy war.
Exactly.
But that's what's cool about these books, is that he writes it to be so realistic as far as the mental aspects of the way that trauma affects people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I didn't have any other notes on that chapter.
I don't think I did either.
All right.
All right.
Chapter 18, High Prince of War.
All right. Adolin is on a walk with a young woman and is getting the cut strap checked by leather workers. He learns that the strap was indeed cut, Dalinar is seen pondering his visions and wondering how best to protect Elhokar. My autocorrect said something. Him and Adolin? No, Renarin. Him and Renarin then get into a conversation where Dalinar promises his son that he will get him his own plate and blade. He then goes and asks Elhokar to be High Prince of War, and he is told it would be considered. A high storm is quickly approaching, and Renarin and Dalinar make haste to their war camp. They make it just in time to take cover in their soldiers' barracks, and Dalinar begins having a vision/episode.
Yes.
Yes.
That is what happens.
I agree. That is what happens.
I don't have a ton of notes on this chapter, I don't think. I think that the girl that Adolin is with is very funny, where she's like, we were supposed to go on a walk, and now we're in this stinky cobbler's place.
Yeah. So we didn't touch on it at all. Adolin...
He's a player.
He's a player, but he also sucks with women. He is not good with women at all, which I find very funny.
Because he's like he's like the High Prince's son. Yeah. So he's like a very sought after.
He's like the most sought after guy ever, but he's just terrible.
He's terrible with women.
He's just awful, and it's like not even like because he's a bad guy. He just. Well, maybe he's like inconsiderate sometimes, like for sure, but
yeah,
it's not like I don't think he tries to be.
Yeah, I think he's just not really thinking about others.
Yeah.
Or thinking about women. I think he has a lot going on besides the women, and then that's just kind of part of it.
We learn. I have this one thing marked. It's when Adolin goes with what's her name? I
don't have him.
What is
this
name?
Janala?
Is it Janala? Yes, it's Janala.
Okay.
Where they're like continuing on their walk and they stop at to talk to Kadash, the what do you call him?
The Ardent.
The Ardent, yeah. And they're just kind of talking about Adolin's
his calling. Yeah.
And everything. And that just I underline that just because that kind of gives us a little more insight into I guess the Vorin belief and everything that everybody is supposed to have a calling, and Adolin's calling is dueling. Yeah. That's what he's set out to make his calling.
Right, and then Kadash is saying you haven't made a lot of progress on that recently, but part of the codes is that you shouldn't be dueling during war because then men that could be needed might be wounded in a duel.
Yeah.
So Adolin's I'm not making progress.
Which is probably another reason, it's obvious, that's another reason probably why Adolin has an issue with his dad and his strict following of the codes and whatnot.
I would agree.
Yeah. Kind of going forward with this. You said you didn't have a lot of notes on this chapter, right?
The only notes that I have is when they are talking to Elhokar.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so after Adolin goes on this walk, Janala blows him off because he keeps taking her to places, and she was like, this temple's not very romantic. Yeah. The cobbler's not very romantic. And then he's like, sorry about it. And she's like, all right, give me a palanquin. She's like, I'm done. Thanks. After that, Adolin goes with Dalinar, doesn't he? No, Dalinar goes alone to talk to Elhokar. And he actually sees a high prince outside waiting to have a meeting with him, but he goes straight in because he's the king's uncle, so he has a more direct access. So that's definitely where you can see another point of contention for the other high princes towards Dalinar. Something I have marked here while they are having this conversation, it's when Elhokar says to him, you think I'm a poor king, don't you, uncle? And he goes, what? Of course not. And Elhokar says, you always talk about what I should be doing and where I'm lacking. Tell me truthfully, uncle, when you look at me, do you wish you saw my father's face instead? And Dalinar says, of course I do. And Elhokar's expression darkens. Dalinar laid a hand on his nephew's shoulder. I'd be a poor brother if I didn't wish that Gavilar had lived. I failed him. It was the greatest, most terrible failure of my life. But just because I loved your father does not mean that I think you're a failure. Nor does it mean I do not love you in your own right. Alethkar itself could have collapsed upon Gavilar's death, but you organized and executed our counterattack. You are a fine king. Mm-hmm. And Elhocar says, "You've been listening to readings from that book again, haven't you?" Dalinar says, "I have." Elhocar says, "You sound just like him, Near the end, when he began to act erratically." But I really like this whole interaction because it does show, like, that Dalinar, while he doesn't think the king is necessarily always doing the right thing, he still respects him. Yeah. But he does respect him for the fact that he kept Elhocar together when Gavilar did die. Mm-hmm. And that, like, that's the weight of the world on someone's shoulders, right? Exactly. That, like, your king just died, and now I have to pick up the pieces. Yes. And make sure that this, like, kingdom doesn't fall apart. Mm-hmm. And he did that.
He did that. Yeah, they kind of go on and they kind of like start spatting at each other some more too. Mm-hmm. Like they call him out. Like, somebody's angry out there.
I love Atlanta, man.
Mm-hmm. All right. This conversation has gone off the path. The High Princes need a single leader to force them to work together. I vow that if you name me High Prince of War, I will see you protected as you saw my father protected. And then, he immediately says, like, I shouldn't have said that. Like, but that just, I love this, like, back and forth because, like, they obviously love each other. Yeah. They want the best for each other and everything, but they're still just like, there's contention.
Yeah, like, Elhokar's like, I know you wish I was still my father. Yeah. I know that you wish I wasn't king. I know that you see me weak. I know that you don't see me and you don't respect me the same way that you respected my father. Mm-hmm. But Dalinar is doing his best to respect Elhocar because he is his brother's son. Yeah. And he is the king.
Yeah. And also because, like, I guess all these rumors about Dalinar and everything and his obsessions with, like, this book, that a lot of people are not a big fan of this book, The Way of Kings, because it allegedly says some things that, like, go against what their society believes and whatnot. And I don't know, there's, like, a lot of pushback because of that, and it's just you're seeing a man push a boulder up a hill and he's just trying to get to the top of the hill, but everything's kind of piled up against him.
I agree. And then at the end of this chapter we get to Renarin's outside waiting for him, and they look up and they're like, oh my god, there's a high storm coming, we need to get inside. And they were going to stay near the palace, but then Dalinar was like, in his head he's like, I know I'm going to have one of those episodes because a high storm's about to hit. I need to go right now. And so they run to their camp and they get into the barracks like last second. And then Dalinar is in a room full of people. He has never had one of these episodes in front of anyone besides his immediate family. Yeah. Or like some of his like wards and things like that. Or not wards. What are the girls? The scribes, I guess. Yeah. He's never had an episode in front of anyone besides people that he trusts in his like immediate circle. And so now people just in the general public and like his soldiers are going to see him at a point of weakness. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it just jumps right into it with this next chapter.
Yeah, and I will say, chapter 19, Starfalls, this was one I talked about earlier that I remember a lot more of this part of the book. Yeah. And this chapter was one that on my first read through, I think is like where this book really solidified for me that I was like really, really going to enjoy it. Because this vision, I don't know, something about this chapter in particular like really does it for me. Yeah. Like to where Dalinar is put into this place that he's unfamiliar with, and he's having kind of to play this character where he's like a father and a husband to this person he doesn't know, and he's trying to take care of this little girl and take care of this wife, and he meets the Radiants. Yeah. And this chapter is just so vivid in my mind. Like I think this is one of the first chapters I read where I was like seeing it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. This chapter was the thing that kind of grabbed me. And that's part of like, because it raises so many other questions.
Yes. So you want to keep reading.
Yeah, so you want to keep reading to like find those out. Okay, so let me read So we see what Dalinar is envisioning in one of his episodes. It is shown that through the eyes of another man from long ago, he is fighting off shadow-like creatures, defending a family in ancient times. Soon thereafter, a few knights' radiants show up and defeat these monsters. Mm-hmm. That's all I have written for that because,
I think I only have one note in this chapter.
Mm-hmm. It is very straightforward. It does raise a lot of questions, especially in regards to like these shadow monsters and everything.
The shadow monsters and the radiants.
And the radiants, yeah. So I'm going to let you read that note right there. If you can read it. I have bad handwriting.
Oh. Is that a spoiler?
That is a spoiler. I'm not going to say that's, but like that's the first time we see that and everything. Yeah. So these like shadow monsters show up and they're just like killing everybody. Yeah. And also he's like, are these void bringers? What's going on? Yeah.
And then like I like that he keeps asking like, what year are we in?
Yeah.
And he's like, where are we? What kingdom are we in? This is the first time we hear the words Urithiru. Mm-hmm. What I have, let's see, kind of where we've already seen lashing in the prologue, but we have another instance of it here where it says the Blue Knight's armor began to glow faintly and he launched into the air as if falling straight up. That's lashing.
Yeah, that's what we saw Zeth do.
Yeah, and I also thought it was interesting because they were like, oh, Dalinar, like the character he's playing in this vision was so talented with the like the fire poker. Yeah. That the knight said, I cannot promise you a position in one of the orders. That decision is not mine, but if your skill with the sword is similar to your skill with the hearth tending implements, then I am confident you will find a place with us. So it's interesting that you kind of get it's interesting that like if you have this skill you can just go join the Knight Radiants. It's not like you are born to be a Knight Radiant, right? Which I think is like kind of an interesting thing here. Yeah, it's like as long as you show that you have some merit and everything, like anybody can go join. Yeah. Because like all we know so far is that it's they've always been seen as like a holier than thou kind of order, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah. Did you catch this? It's when he's just killed off some creatures and this man's wife is like, whoa. Yeah. She literally says, 3 gods, Heb, the woman whispered. Did you catch that when she said 3 gods? She literally says 3 gods. I did not pick that up. Interesting. So that's an indication that, okay, on this world there are 3 gods. Yeah. And we haven't really heard about gods in like these modern times that we have been in, that Dalinar's in at the moment. Yeah, we haven't really explored that yet. No, because we always hear about just the heralds. Yeah. And there are... We haven't even really gotten there yet. No, they've been brought up because like they're shown as like deities and everything, and they're the ones... Only briefly, though. Yeah, and everything. So, I don't know, that's kind of something interesting that this is so different, like that the heralds are not being worshipped, but 3 gods. Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know, ancient times, they're different, they're wacky. Chapter 20. Chapter Scarlet. 20. Unless you have more notes for the last chapter. I actually don't, except just when the whole thing where Dalinar kind of like he's not paying attention, and every time he looks back at like some of the heralds, their helmet is either on or off. Yes. Yeah, but I think you mentioned that earlier. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and he's like, where are they going? Yeah, where are they going? And this is also where the vision tells him to trust Sadeas. And so he takes this very literally and is like, well, I guess I should trust him. Yes. Also, when he asks like what country are they in and everything, Yeah.
Alethala, you live there. It is our duty and our privilege, the woman said, to stay vigilant for the desolation. One kingdom to study the arts of war so that the others might have peace. We die so that you may live. It has ever been our place. And that, I think, kind of is an indication. So Alethala is what old Alethkar used to be called and everything.
Right.
That's an example of like, oh, this is why the Alethi are so warlike, because literally this used to be a nation that was their whole duty was to go to war and protect the rest of the world.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's so cool because it raises all these questions and it gives us some answers to other things.
Yeah.
So good. So good. This is probably this was the chapter that I think solidified it for me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Okay.
Chapter 20, Scarlet. And this is another Kaladin flashback.
Yes.
And this, I'll let you do your summary.
Yeah. It's very short. Cal tries to save the life of a young girl in the street, but ultimately she dies. Kaladin is distraught, but Liren encourages him that he did all that he could. And I think that really is all that kind of happens.
Yeah, I mean, this chapter is literally like 2 pages.
It does go to show you that Liren does very much care for his son. Like he understands, and he's trying to teach him that he needs to strengthen his heart and everything to be a surgeon and whatnot, and just kind of like showing what kind of a father he is and whatnot. Because he's a good dad.
He is a good dad.
He is a good dad.
All right, chapter 21. Why men lie.
Why men lie. Kaladin is still kind of reeling after the last bridge run. However, he has to keep moving. Gaz informs him that the high-ups are not happy with him bringing back wounded, and they will not be fed. Cal plans to share his food and gets another man, Rock, to do the same. Kaladin and Rock hit it off and manage to bring in another man named Teft to join in a scheme that will help the wounded.
Yes.
Yes.
I actually have some notes on this one, I believe. Actually, no, I don't. I lied.
Oh,
they're in the next chapter. But yeah, I really like the camaraderie that kind of happens in this chapter. Obviously, Cal's like really torn up when he finds out that they're not going to get enough food for the wounded. And I know that it's them just trying to like teach them a lesson on like, this is why we have you leave the wounded. Like, we're not going to take care of them. Like they're like, you are literally disposable to us.
Yeah.
But I like that Kaladin says to everybody like, hey, they're not going to feed them. Does anybody want to help? I'm going to give part of my meals to them so they can live. And everyone's like, that's funny. No. Like, I barely get enough to eat as it is. I'm not going to share part of my food with these people that are probably going to die anyways. And I love that Rock decides to help out. And then Kaladin tells Rock, like, hey, I have this plan to find a way to, like, I don't know if he tells him, like, to make money or just, like, help the wounded men. But he says, like, I need your help with something.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're able to rope Teft into that, even though Teft is very, like, still very standoffish, because he comes up to him and says, like, hey, I need your help with something. And Teft is like, I'm not giving them my food.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
And Kaladin's like, great. That's not what I'm going to ask you.
And then Rock, like, even in his, like, saying, like, I will give Hobber my food, and only Hobber.
Yeah.
Because
he's the one that's going to live.
Yeah.
Or seems most likely to live.
Yeah. I love that. Love this. Just whole they're getting the boys together.
The boys.
They're getting the boys together. It's just so nice. There's a good interaction between Kaladin and Syl. What is madness? She asks. It's when men don't think right, Kaladin said, glad for the conversation to distract him. Men never seem to think right. Madness is worse than normal. It's just a fun interaction that I like a lot. Just more like, oh, Syl growing and everything. And they go on to talk about, and it's, I think, the first time that Dalinar is brought up to Kaladin. And they're talking about lying and everything. And she says, well, I guess, but I think there's a person out there who hasn't ever lied. Dalinar. Who? The king's uncle. Everyone says he never lies. Your bridgemen even talk about it sometimes. That's right, the Blackthorn. Kaladin had heard of him even in his youth. He's a light eyes. That means he lies. They're all the same still. The more noble they look, the more corrupt they are inside. It's all an act. And he just kind of goes on.
Yeah.
And it just... It goes more to show Kaladin's feelings toward Light Eyes and everything, and it's good. It's a nice interaction. I don't think Syl likes that he's talking like this either, right?
Yeah, no, she's like, well, what if he is like that honorable?
Yeah, and
Kaladin's like, they all lie. They all suck.
Yeah.
I like there's an interaction here. This is after Kaladin asks Teft for his help. And Teft says, not your food. Or Kaladin says, I don't want your food. I want you, your loyalty, your allegiance. And Teft says, I've given my loyalty before. Too many times now. It always works out the same. Kaladin says, your trust gets betrayed. Teft says, storms no. I betray it. You can't depend on me, son. I belong here as a bridgeman. He said, I depended on you yesterday. You impressed me. He said, fluke. I'll judge that. Kaladin says, Teft, we're all broken in one way or another. Otherwise, we wouldn't be bridgemen. I've failed. My own brother died because of me. Teft says, so why keep caring? Kaladin says, it's either that or give up and die. And Teft says, and if death is better? And this is where Kaladin says it comes back to this problem. He's thinking this. It came back to this problem. This was why the bridgeman didn't care if he helped the wounded or not. And Kaladin says, death isn't better. It's easy to say that now, but when you stand on the ledge and you look down at that dark, endless pit, you change your mind. Just like Hobber did, just like I've done. I think you've seen it too.
It's great.
Yeah.
Changing topics. We learned something about Rock. He can see Syl.
Yes.
He's the only one that can see her besides Kaladin.
And Kaladin's
and he can always see her.
Yeah. Kaladin's like, what do you see her?
Yeah. And he's like, you have her following you everywhere, which also is kind of the reason why Rock is just like,
yeah, trust him.
I'll be friends with this guy or whatever. So much fun.
So much fun. All right.
It's not fun.
Chapter 22, Eyes, Hands, or Spears. Spheres.
Spheres. I know. I'm reading something real quick. Okay. Chapter 22. Dalinar and his sons attend a feast with the other bright lords and the king, and Dalinar finds out that everyone is talking about him. Navani, his sister-in-law, has returned to the Shattered Plains and plans to meet with Dalinar to read to him. It is then announced by Elhokar that Sadeas will be the High Prince of Information and will be investigating the strap incident.
Oh, Elhokar, you dumb idiot.
Oh, you dumb, stupid fool. Let's touch on that. Let's talk about it. Okay.
So my biggest problem with this is the fact that obviously Dalinar went to him a couple chapters before and said, hey, I think I should be High Prince of War. I think we need to change the way things are being done. And he goes, I'll think about it. And then Elhokar goes to Sadeas and says, this is what Dalinar said to me. And Sadeas says, well, I think High Prince of War is a little intense for like a first High Prince of something. He said, why don't you make me High Prince of Information? So that way I can investigate this strap because I don't think Dalinar is doing a good enough job. Which also gives Sadeas complete access to Dalinar's work camp. And also it undermines Dalinar because Sadeas is now a High Prince of Information, and Dalinar's suggestion of being High Prince of War has completely been disregarded.
Yes. That also, like, goes along with I think a major theme in this book is information is the biggest sense of power over anything. Mm-hmm. If you have the knowledge, you control what's going to happen and whatnot. And I think that's so good because it's literally shown to us that it's just like, oh, war, no, information, here it is.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. So good. We also meet Navani.
Yes. We meet Navani, and we also have the start of this chapter gives you a lot of good wit content.
Good wit content. Such good wit content.
Because he's literally insulting everyone that walks through the gate.
Everyone. Except for Dalinar, right? He doesn't really insult him.
He doesn't say anything to Dalinar, and then he makes a comment about Renarin and is like, he's not as, like, weak as you think he is. Mm-hmm. Which he says it in a much, like, funnier way.
Is that now or is that later?
No, that's now. He says it, like, as they're walking in.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I had underlined something here. This is when Navani comes back. Like, we know that Lady Navani is here because Wit says, "Oh, is that Lady Navani behind you? How long have you been back at the plains, and how did I not notice the smell?" And Dalinar freezes, and he goes, "Huh?" And then Navani throws it right back at Wit, which I love. But yeah, this is where we meet Navani for the first time.
What do you think of Navani?
I love her. I love this woman.
I also love this woman. I think she is so cool. And no other reasons.
No other reasons. Mm-hmm. She's so smart. And, like, even in this chapter, like, while they're at the feast, she's showing another group of women a fabrial she's working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a scientist.
She's so cool.
She's so cool and
beautiful.
Hot. And I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. All right. Okay.
I know, we did, like, all the really serious stuff, and then we were like, Navani's pretty.
She's so pretty. The serious stuff, we talked about how we insulted people. Yeah. But okay, so Adolin has also been fighting duels in this situation because he keeps hearing people talk mess about Dalinar and everything because his soldiers saw him have his episode and everything, and that's going around, and he's like having to defend his dad's honor and everything. And Dalinar kind of looks around and he's like, oh, everybody knows. And this is like, it kind of hits him hard.
Yeah. I underlined where Elhokar suddenly proclaims, "High Princes and Light Eyes," and everyone turns toward the end of the table. And he says, "I'm sure many of you have heard the rumors regarding the attempt on my life during the hunt 3 days ago when my saddle girth was cut." Elhokar says, "I assure you I was never in any real danger, thanks to the protection of the King's Guard and vigilance of my uncle." And this is when he says, "However, I believe it is wise to treat all threats with due prudence and seriousness. Therefore, I am appointing Bright Lord Toriel Sadeas to be the High Prince of Information, charging him to unearth the truth regarding this attempt on my life." And Dalinar blinks in shock, and then he closes his eyes and let out a soft groan. Because he says, "What am I?" He thinks I'm ignoring the threats to him, so he's looking to Sadeas instead. And Navani says, "Well, I suppose that's all right. I kind of trust Sadeas." Yeah. Obviously, we already spoke on that in the beginning and why it sucks that Elhokar did this. That's pretty much the end of the chapter.
Yeah, that's it. Also, I love that. I just love that chapter so much.
Yeah.
Because, oh man.
Oh man.
We get a lot of wit. We get the money. We get like, everybody is just like, oh, Dalinar's crazy. Uh-oh. Ooh, it's so good.
So good. Okay. Chapter 23. Many uses.
The rest of the bridgemen are displeased with collecting rocks, but this gives the three amigos to start their plan by collecting knobweed plants and hiding them under the cart, in which they later come back at night and retrieve their goods. While extracting the sap from the reeds, we learn more about their backgrounds and camaraderie begins to ensue.
Yeah, so I don't really have a lot of notes on this chapter.
This has been a pretty straightforward part.
Yeah.
Much more so than part one, because part one was a lot of setup and everything. But yeah, I love their plan to extract the knobweed sap and everything. And like they're using Syl to help Rock collect a lot of stuff and everything. And even at night, like they're going somewhat ignored because, I mean, they're just bridgemen. You know? Like, who cares? But we get to learn all about their backgrounds.
Yeah, we learn about Rock's background.
Yeah, we learn about Rock's background.
And where he comes from. And Kaladin makes a comment. Something I have underlined here, though, is... Rock says he came down with his master because they're trying to win shard plate for, like, the Horn Eaters. Yeah. And that was why he came down here. And Kaladin says he was lucky to be slain. He says... Well, okay. Let me start over on that. Okay. Kaladin suggests that Rock's master was lucky. Rock says lucky to be slain by a shard bearer. Kaladin says lucky he didn't win and discover how he'd been tricked. They wouldn't have let him walk away with Sadeas's plate. And Teft breaks in. He's like, no, nonsense, like tradition. And Kaladin says, tradition is the blind witness they use to condemn us, Teft. It's the pretty box they use to wrap up their lies. It makes us serve them. And Teft says, I've lived a lot longer than you, son. I know things. If a common man killed an enemy shard bearer, he'd become a light eyes. That's the way of it. And Kaladin lets the argument lapse for a minute, and then eventually, after a while, he makes a comment being like, well, it's not tradition because I know it's not. Yeah. But in between that, we get that interaction where Kaladin's like, okay, well, your master, like, you weren't his servant, you weren't his slave, like, what were you? And he says, I was his cook. And then Kaladin's like, okay, so then how did you end up here? He put poop in everything. He put poop in it all. Rock says, Chuldung apparently has a stronger taste than I assumed. And Teft says, you put Chuldung in High Prince Sadeas's soup? And then Rock says, yeah, actually, I put this thing in his bread too. And use it as a garnish on the pork steak. And made a chutney out of it for the buttered garams. Chuldung has many uses, I found. And they are just cracking up at this. Yes. And it's such a good, like, camaraderie moment. But that laughter and everything, that gives Kaladin the means, because he literally says, like, this is what we need. Yeah. This is, like, what keeps people wanting to stay alive. Camaraderie, friendship, people. Laughter. Joy. Kaladin, you know what he just discovered? What? Live, laugh, love. That was one of the dumbest things I think you... What are you talking about? That's definitely not one of the dumbest things you ever heard me say. Definitely not, but it's one of the funniest. Live, laugh, love, Kaladin thought. Kaladin just discovered live, laugh, love. Oh, love that. All right. Chapter 24. Chapter 24. The Gallery of Maps. All right. Dalinar meets with High Prince Roion and asks him to join forces in the next assault. Dalinar promises the next shards they obtain will go to Roion, and the second will go to him. Roion declines this accord and leaves. Dalinar then begins discussing the matters with Adolin, and the two get into a large argument. Yes. They sure do.
Yeah, this is another very straightforward thing. They meet in the map room. Rowion is like the weakest of the
High Princes.
Yeah. And so that's why Dalinar approached him first, and he's just like, oh, we'll go in together. And Rowion's just like, no, I can't trust you or anything.
Yeah.
And then Adolin comes in, and it hits the fan.
Yeah.
It finally hits the fan between him and Dalinar. And it's just, it just is bad. I don't feel good about anybody in this chapter.
Yeah.
Because it's been set up to where you agree with both of them.
Right. Like, they're both not wrong. And I also, I could never imagine talking to a parental figure like this in my life. But I'm glad that Adolin does. Mm-hmm. And Dalinar even says, I'm glad that my son speaks his mind in a later chapter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. I actually don't have any notes on this chapter.
No, it's a very short chapter.
Short and it's straightforward. Mm-hmm. This is when Adolin brings up the fact that what Sadeas did previously, where he got himself appointed as the High Prince of Information, undermines everything that Dalinar and Adolin are trying to do.
Yes.
Which is obviously a big part of the argument. Mm-hmm. And Adolin's like, you don't want to know the truth. You don't want to face the truth.
You're old.
Yeah, Adolin says, I actually underlined this part, so I lied about not having notes.
Okay.
Adolin says, I don't know what's wrong. Maybe it's your guilt over Gavilar's death, that book, the codes, the visions. Maybe they're all attempts to find escape, find redemption, something. What you see is not real. Your life is now a rationalization, a way of trying to pretend that what's happening isn't happening. But I'll go to damnation itself before I'll let you drag the entire house down without speaking my mind on it.
Awesome. Because it's, yeah. Because, to him and everybody else, Dalinar's losing it.
Yeah. Nobody else thinks it's the Almighty. Even the Ardents are like, I think you're overworked.
Even Dalinar isn't completely convinced that it's the Almighty or anything like that.
Yeah.
He literally is just like, somebody's talking to me.
Somebody.
Maybe I am going crazy. Who knows?
Who knows? All right, chapter 25, The Butcher.
Kaladin flashback time.
We've had so many in this part. I didn't even realize until we're going through this.
Yeah. Kaladin hears two women bad-mouthing his father and goes home to talk to his mom. His mom tells him not to worry about what others think, and they are interrupted with the arrival of the new city lord. The family makes their way to greet the new town leader, Rashon. Rashon tells Liren that he let Wistio die, and it's his fault he's here. Feeling not defeated, but confused, the family ventures home.
Yeah, I underlined the part where Rashon is coming into town. Mm-hmm. And it says, eventually the procession turned or reached the turnoff to Hearthstone. A man was riding a horse, led the carriage and its soldiers forward to the town while most of the wagons contained up to the manor. Cal grew increasingly excited as the carriage rolled into place. Would he finally get to see a real light-eyed hero? And so it shows that, when he's young, they see the Light Eyes and the City Lord as, they're heroes to them. Because they go to war and they do all these things. Mm-hmm. Rashon ends up being really mean.
There you go. Yes.
And nasty.
Yeah. I love it was like an immediate call out too. Oh, I suppose it's your fault that I'm here.
Yeah.
Dude, are you kidding me?
It's great.
It's this guy is a big stinker, and I don't like him.
I also like the at the end of this chapter, where Liren and Hasina have that interaction, where Hasina says, what do you think? Did we throw the queen or the tower? And Liren says, neither. She says, what do we throw instead? He said, I'm not sure. A pair and a trio, maybe. Let's get back home. The words weighed on Cal. The tower was 3 pairs in a game of breakneck. The queen was 2 trios. The first was an outright loss, the other an outright win. But a pair and a trio, that was called the butcher. Whether you won or not would depend on other throws you made, and more importantly, on the throws of everyone else.
Yeah. That's cool. It's a cool analogy right there.
Yeah, it is very cool.
Yeah. So,
all right,
this is
chapter 26. Stillness.
Stillness. We find Dalinar being read a section of The Way of Kings. He ponders what his visions mean in his latest argument with Adolin. While talking with his son Renarin, he's informed there is a chasm fiend spotted and begins to ready to get it. Adolin and Dalinar reconcile with one another on the way to the battlefield when Sadeas shows up wanting to investigate. Sadeas is admitted and allowed to accompany the Kholin house. Later during the sweep of battle, the thrill overtakes Dalinar, but then he is repulsed by the sensation, something that has never happened before. After they have won the battle, Dalinar is reeling about what happened to him and notices a group of Parshendi across the plains with a shard bearer among them.
Ooh.
Who is that?
Who is that? We don't know. We don't know. How do the Parshendi have a shard plate? It's crazy.
Why didn't they join the battle?
Right. That part too. Okay, I don't really have any notes until we get out on the battlefield. Do you have anything before then?
Not in particular. I don't think so. No, I do not. I do like that him and Adolin sort of reconciled in their own like way, where it's not like Adolin basically says like, I do not apologize for what I said, but I apologize for how I said it.
Yeah.
Which is literally like, yeah, that's how probably most arguments end up being arguments. It's all about tone.
Yeah, and also Dalinar like respects that too, where he's like, no, you had every right to say what you said. Because Dalinar could have completely gone back and been like, you shouldn't have talked to me like that. It doesn't matter what you said. You shouldn't have spoken to me at all. And Dalinar's been like, no, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said that. Or, well, Dalinar said he was right. I don't know what else I was going for there.
What are some of your notes, Whitney?
One of my notes is when they are on the battlefield, I underlined a way that the shard blade was described. It says, the way it reacted to flesh and cut steel so easily, it sometimes felt to Dalinar like he was swinging a weapon of pure smoke. As long as he kept the blade in motion, it could not get caught in chinks or stopped by the weight of what it was cutting. Dalinar spun, sweeping out with his blade in a line of death. He sheared through souls themselves, leaving Parshendi to drop dead to the ground. I get it. It's cool. It's cool, and it's, I don't know, just the thought that like these two guys that have these blades in the shard plate can literally just like spin around in a circle and kill people without even trying is like, it's just an insane weapon to have. Yeah. You also learn that the Parshendi always sing when they fight. Yeah. And everything. And like the song will change, but like they'll all still be singing the same thing, even if it changes and whatnot, which is like, that's crazy. That's insane. Yeah. That they're all so like in tune with each other that they're all singing the same thing constantly, even if it does change. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. And then we get into the part with the thrill. Yes. The thrill, from what we can tell, is basically like bloodlust on steroids, right? You have something to say? In a minute. Okay. And it's something that all Alethi feel in the heart of battle
and everything, and probably just like when the emotion like arises and everything, and it's a taboo to talk about it. Is
right.
what we will learn later on and everything. So it's a natural thing for these people to experience. They do not talk about it, but the fact that this thing that happens to everybody, and then Dalinar is repulsed by it.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah, it's definitely some sort of shift in Dalinar for sure. That the fact that the thrill is repulsing him is some sort of internal change. I have a thing right after the sickness faded, his battle reflexes took control. He says he needed this victory for himself, for Adolin, for his men. Why had he been so horrified? The Parshendi had murdered Gavilar. It was right to kill them. And then the smoke feeling, or the sick feeling returns right after that. And he's like really thinking about it. People start, the actual cavalry itself starts coming over onto the plains. The bridges are down. And while he's watching them pass by and there's like wind spread in the air, he hears a voice that says life before death.
What page are you on?
468.
Okay. Oh, yes. I had that.
And he goes, what was that voice?
All right, so
sorry.
let's turn
books.
to the back of the book real quick, Whitney. The back cover.
Okay.
Speak again the hallowed oaths. Oh, what's that? Life before death.
Crazy. But I didn't realize we heard this so early on, and specifically with Dalinar.
Did we not hear it before it? Did we not hear it with?
No.
Was it Dalinar first?
Yeah, this is the first time that those words are brought up in this book.
Okay.
So.
Whoa.
Something to make you think.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, they end up winning the battle. They get the gem heart. And then, like you said, at the end of the chapter, they notice Parshendi standing on a nearby plateau. That shard bearer was standing there. The Parshendi had a shard plate on. And he even said, like, the shard bearer hadn't been here during the battle itself. Why come now? Had he arrived too late? And then they all turn and left, leaping across the chasm behind them and fleeing back toward their unseen haven at the center of the plains. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't have anything else to say.
This next chapter is one of my favorites.
Chasm Duty. The next, these are the final two chapters in this part.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I think they're probably, in my opinion, the best chapters in.
I would agree.
Yeah. I think I prefer the latter.
The second one?
Yeah, I prefer chapter 28 to this one. But
really?
Yes.
Well, like I said before, I'm a diehard Kaladin fan, so
I know it.
I love this chapter a lot. All right, speak on it.
27, Chasm Duty. We see Kaladin taking the spoils of his labor to the apothecary to sell. After finding out that the apothecaries of the camp have had their own scheme going, Kaladin leaves with some more supplies and spears in his pocket. Gaz then gives Bridge 4 Chasm Duty to go and salvage supplies from the dead. Kaladin and his homies start cracking jokes and being casual with one another, and they start attracting more reserve members of the bridge crew. Here we also learn that the Parshendi grow their armor from their skin. Yeah. And after some harsh words with Moash and the others, Kaladin picks up a spear.
Sphere.
Yeah. A spear and starts doing a kata. Everyone around him quiets and observes, Kaladin only focusing and meditating during his kata. Afterwards, no one else says anything like they once just did. After Chasm Duty, Cal plans for Rock to cook a stew for Bridge 4 using the money he made from the knobweed. By doing so, Kaladin has won over Bridge 4. Yeah! He did it. Let's go.
Yeah, so they go down into the chasms. This is something that Kaladin says probably is just to keep the bridgemen busy, but also, like, obviously a lot of money goes into the equipment and things that they're, like, buying for the army. So the fact that if they can scavenge parts of it, it helps out. Obviously they're slaves, so they don't really get paid for what they bring up, but they do get in trouble if they don't bring up enough. They have to meet a certain quota. They find like a light eyes while they're down there.
Yep.
And God, I just love I love the scene where he picks up the spear and Moash and everyone else is like, oh, you said you were a soldier. Like, yeah, I bet you've never held a spear in your life. Like, we know that you tried to get into the army when you got here and like they turned you down. Like, there's no way you can fight.
Yeah.
I love this. I'm going to read it.
Okay.
Strength surged through him as he spun the spear up into an advanced kata. His body moved on its own accord, going through the forms he'd trained in so frequently. The spear danced in his fingers, comfortable, an extension of himself. He spun with it, swinging it around and around, across his neck, over his arm, in and out of jabs and swings. Though it had been months since he'd even held a weapon, his muscles knew what to do. It's as if the spear itself knew what to do. Men had always told Kaladin that he fought like nobody else. He'd felt it on the first day he'd picked up a quarterstaff. Though Tuck's advice had helped him refine and channel what he could do. Kaladin had cared when he'd fought. He never fought empty or cold. He fought to keep his men alive. I love Kaladin.
He's so cool.
He's so cool. And that's what, after he does this, he has a thought being like, oh, how I missed it. And he opens his eyes. And then everyone is just staring at him. And he goes, oh, sorry. Back to work. I don't want to get caught down here when night falls. And everyone like jumps into motion. Yeah. And Tef makes a comment being like, oh, it's just a kata, like, can you, like, it's silly, it's, can't use that in combat, it's just training, whatever. And Tef says, I've seen katas before, but never one like that. The way you moved, the speed, the grace, and there was some sort of spren zipping around you between your sweeps, glowing with a pale light. It was beautiful. And Rock is like, you can see that? Yeah. And Tef was like, sure, I've never seen a spren like that. Ask the other men. A few of them were pointing.
Yeah. I just kind of, because this is kind of the moment where we see that like Kaladin is winning over not only, so in doing kata, he shows his men that he is different. And also during this moment, during chasm duty and everything, him and like the rest are showing the others like, we can be ourselves still. We are still individuals and everything, because we have that one guy, who I forget his name, start singing
a Dunny?
Song. Yeah, is it Dunny?
I think it's Dunny. I'm pretty sure.
Dunny. Now that you say that.
Because Dunny, like, he was one of the ones, like, because when they were initially walking through the chasms, like, Kaladin's trying, like, him and Rock and Teft are having a conversation. They're, going back and forth with each other, and Kaladin, he'll turn around and be like, oh, what do you think, to somebody, and they just kind of like look at him, but like Dunny was one that I think like got closer and closer, and so finally Kaladin was like, what do you think, Dunny? And he's like, yeah, and then
it's great.
They end up singing, and Teft is like, oh my god, that was beautiful. Yeah, it was Dunny. But yeah, after that, they take everything up out of the chasm. Kaladin says, I'm going to use my secret weapon. And Rock says, what are you talking about? And Kaladin says, actually, it's you.
It's you.
And so, this is so good. You literally texted me when you were reading this part, and you were like, dude, the fuck, oh my god, dude, the scene with the stew, it's just so good, makes my heart feel so full. And that's, yeah.
I cried. I'll let you know, like, I teared up during this scene. There's
Shed a
something,
couple tears.
There's something about relationships and everything where if I just see like wholesome things are going to make me get emotional. Yeah. More than like, a death or anything like that. But it's really like that moment where they're all sharing a meal together. just is so good, and everything is just so like we see like these people coming together who have gone through so much, yet they don't know anything about each other, and now they're finally just accepting like we are together in this moment.
Yeah.
Because sharing a meal is a very intimate activity.
Yes.
Whether like you think about it or not, like the people you typically go and eat food with are people you are close with.
Yeah.
Like you go on a date, you eat dinner with your family, you go and hang out with your friends. You're not going to go and eat food with a stranger typically.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when you are eating food with a stranger, like it could be like a first date.
Yes.
Or like a business deal where you're like trying to get to know someone, but it is it is like a much more intimate setting because you're sitting there with someone one-on-one and like there's no distractions besides the fact that like you're eating.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And together, yeah.
But yeah, it's good because Kaladin says like, you know, what man do you know can resist a pot of stew? And you see like even the bridgemen in other bridges watching them with this stew and realizing everyone comes out, and even the bridgemen that didn't like laugh, they're sitting there eating a hearty meal and like just, you know, something that's not given to them by the camps and enjoying themselves, even if they aren't participating in, you know, the singing and chatting with one another. They're still there.
Yeah.
Because Kaladin says not a single person turned it down.
Exactly.
So good. All right. Chapter 28, Decision.
All right. Adolin observes his father, noticing how weathered he is, and how he's probably the only one to notice. Him and Dalinar begin going over and inspecting the camp and talking of Sadeas's investigation. Adolin notices that his father is giving him the lead on every interaction. Soon there, Dalinar then decides to clear his mind and get his warhammer and begin to break apart the rock in the latrine trench being built. He does this for hours until he is interrupted by Navani, he has completely forgot had a meeting with him. Feeling sorry, him and her meet with Adolin and his new love interest to answer a span read from Yasna. Yasna discussed some things she's been researching, but not the super important bits, and lets them know she has a new ward. Afterwards, Dalinar and Navani have a private conversation, and Dalinar informs her that he is going to abdicate, leaving Adolin in charge.
All right. Let's talk about it. I actually have a decent amount of notes in this one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Tell me some.
So one thing I have underlined here, let's see. They're talking about, you know, it was a good idea to let families come and stay on the Shattered Plains with some of the soldiers. So Adolin's saying, you know, as long as there's people, or as long as, you know, there's community and there's like a town here, people will be here. Or Dalinar says that. And then Adolin says it's a good thing, isn't it? So long as those people are Alethi. Dalinar says perhaps. And what will happen to the value of gemstones if we continue to capture gem hearts at the rate we have? And Adolin's like, oh, that was a good question. Dalinar says, what happens, I wonder, when the scarcest yet most desirable substance in the land suddenly becomes commonplace? There's much going on here, son. Much we haven't considered. The gem hearts, the Parshendi, the death of Gavilar. You will have to be ready to consider these things. And Adolin says, me? What does that mean? And Dalinar's like,
who knows?
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
But that's like, it brings up what I really like about these books is the intricacies of like political and economic standings in this fantasy world.
Yeah, because Dalinar is literally bringing up the idea of inflation.
Yeah, like literally.
Yeah.
So.
Which is, you know.
Cause and demand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also get a messenger from the last High Prince that Dalinar was wanting to convince to come along with him.
Oh, yeah.
And they basically, like, it's another no. It was the final one. And he kind of realizes, like, oh, nobody's going to say, like, yes to me.
Right.
Like, there's no hope for a joint bridge assault.
Yeah. Speaking of that, it was Thanadal who was the last of them.
Yes.
Each Pride Prince has turned him down in his own way. Dalinar says all of them have turned me down except Sadeas. And Adolin says, I doubt it would be wise to approach him with this, father. Dalinar says, you're probably right. His voice was cold. He was angry, furious even. They're sending me a message. They've never liked the influence I have over the king, and they're eager to see me fall. They don't want to do something I ask them to, just in case it might help me regain my footing. So it even shows that Adolin's like, don't ask Sadeas. I don't think it's worth it. Yeah. And that nobody else wants to do these joint plateau assaults with him. Even though it would probably help unite Elithkar, I don't know.
And it's after that where he's just like, I gotta go hit some rocks.
Yeah. I underlined.
Yeah, go ahead.
He was losing his thirst for battle that worried him, as the thrill, the enjoyment, and longing of war was part of what drove the Alethi as a people. The grandest of masculine arts was to become a great warrior, and the most important calling was to fight. And so that's when he's like, I'm losing my thrill.
Yeah.
I'm like losing this. I need to work this out. And he starts beating up some rocks.
Yeah, and that goes back to what you were talking about earlier. Sometimes the best thing for you to do, what Galadin did, is to work your body.
Yeah.
And it helps you think and kind of clear your mind of everything and whatnot. Yeah. And that's what he's doing. And it's very, very nice. He brings up this sort of thing here. Where were the shards for ordinary men? Why hadn't the ancients, who were so wise, created anything to help them? And I kind of have a note here, and that's just because people need to work. Yeah. People need hardships to get better and learn from that and everything. And he keeps pondering this stuff over his head, and he's thinking about all these ideas and whatnot. And then he gets to this one point, and I have this note here. And he says, someone had to start, someone had to be the model. In this, he had a reason not to abdicate. Whether or not he was mad, the way he now did things was better than the way Sadeas or the others did things. One needed only look at the lives of his soldiers and his people to see that that was true. And I literally wrote, we're being a little too idealistic here, Dalinar. Yeah. And it's just oh man, because he has this idea that in his mind is the best way for them to move forward and everything. Yeah. But he's only one guy, and also nobody really trusts you. Yeah. And everyone thinks you're going crazy. Yeah. But then he kind of realizes that. Yeah. I would like to bring back something I brought up earlier about the codes. Yes. As to where Dalinar says a king would not do something he would not... Or, sorry, I'm getting all mixed up. A king would not do something, or would not make his men do something that he would not do. Mm-hmm. And here's Dalinar digging a latrine trench. Yeah. I just think that speaks on that. Mm-hmm. Moving forward. Yes, moving forward. Navani shows up. And she's kind of you missed our appointment. And he's like, oh no. I'm the worst. Oh, dunk. Oh, dunk. Oh, dunk. Oh, beans. She makes a comment to him. Where she says, do you know why I picked Gavilar? Oh, there we go. Instead of you all these years ago. Yep. And she says, I didn't pick him because he would become King Dalinar. Though that's what everyone says. I chose him because you frightened me. That intensity of yours, it scared your brother too, you know. She said, it's still in there. I can see it in your eyes, but you've wrapped armor around it, a glistening set of shard plate to contain it. That is part of what I find fascinating.
then he's like, stop flirting with me.
Stop flirting with me. Stop. Yeah, my one note here was, I love them. I love them. They're so good. I love this interaction and everything because Navani is a woman that gets what she wants.
Yes.
I think she even says that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she says that later in the book where she's like, I get what I want.
I get what I want. And so anyway, they go and they meet Adolin and Malashka.
Yes.
And they start talking to Yasna. And Yasna's telling them, that, like, oh, I found some things in this library. And also I have a new ward.
And they're like, because they see Shallan's drawing.
Yeah. They're like, that's too good to be Yasna.
Yeah.
Like, she's good. She's not that good.
Yeah. I really like the comment where Dalinar says, your mother is here in the war camps again. And Yasna writes back, send my mother my respect. Keep her at arm's length, uncle. She bites. Which I love. I think it's so funny. Oh,
it's great. I love it. They're just everybody's so nice.
They're so nice.
Oh, the Colins. I would love a sitcom involving the Colins.
I don't know if it would be a sitcom.
I think it would. I think it'd be very funny.
But yeah, so they talk for a while. And then Dalinar says, please reconsider coming back to the war camps. And she says, I am coming eventually, just can't say when. And she's like, I can't wait to see a chasmfiend for myself. And he says, a dead one. I have no intention of letting you repeat your brother's experience a few weeks ago. And then after that, it just stops.
Yeah. Where she's talking about Voidbringers and everything.
Yes, that's what we should talk about.
When Shallan is doing the interpretation, like just recreating the drawing that was in this ancient text, she says, I believe that the ancient artist didn't know what a Voidbringer looked like, and so she drew the most horrific thing she knew of.
Right, which was a chasmfiend.
Yeah. So that kind of goes to show just like, we still don't know what a Voidbringer is.
Right.
Is it those shadowy things that we saw from earlier or whatnot? But then, no, they're not. They're not Voidbringers because we're told that by the Knight's Radiance, correct? Right. Yeah, so we're just like, okay, so if that's not a Voidbringer and this isn't a Voidbringer, what's a Voidbringer? Something worse.
Like, literally something worse. And then, yeah, right at the end of this chapter, Dalinar says, Navani, I'm going to advocate in favor of Adolin. I'm stepping down as soon as I can make the necessary arrangements. It will be a few days at most. And Navani says, oh, Dalinar, this is a terrible mistake.
Yeah.
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 And that's part 2.
That's part 2. What'd you think of part 2, Whit?
I love part 2.
Part 2 is really good.
We're going to finish every part and I'm going to go, I love part 2.
Man, that
I love
was
part
great.
3.
That's so good. So, Dalinar.
Yeah.
He's abdicating.
Yep.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so he's going to give up his rule to Adolin because he thinks he is going crazy. Yeah. And everyone thinks he's going crazy.
Everybody thinks that he's going crazy.
And so he makes the decision and decides it would be best for Adolin to take the princedom.
And I disagree.
I disagree as well, but I would think we also know that he's not crazy.
True. Like, we like, there is no, like, as a reader and everything, we know this guy is not crazy. Like, he is seeing these things and whatnot, and somebody is talking to him, and we have that foresight and whatnot, right? But I get it, and also just like, what's going to happen?
I don't know.
And even Navani is like on his side.
Yeah, Navani's
which
like,
I don't think he expected.
Yeah, Navani's like, nah, I don't think you're making the right choice here.
Who knows?
I guess we'll find out in part 3.
All right. Let's do our extra bits.
Yeah.
Whitney.
If this is where you're leaving off for the day, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
We're going to yap now.
Oh, wait.
What?
Remember to please subscribe. Please like, give us a rating. If you can, give us a review. It'd be really nice. We have an Instagram. It's just like
at Listenercast.
Follow us. If you have something to say.
Yeah, we've
email
had some
us.
people. Yeah, you can email us. We've had some people leave comments on YouTube videos as well. We are obviously reading everything, and are going to be implementing some stuff that people have asked for already.
Yeah.
So if you have left a comment, we see you, we hear you. Absolutely, we're gonna do the things that you've asked. Yeah.
Cool.
We're gonna yap now. Okay, I'm gonna ask you the same thing I asked you last week.
Okay.
Or not last week. It's like 2 weeks ago now. Oh my god. What are you reading right now?
Right now, I am reading Children of Ruin.
Right.
Yeah, which is the second book in like the Children trilogy by Adrian Tchaikovsky. It's good. I am almost finished with it. I don't like it as much as the first book.
Okay.
But it's still good. I would still recommend it if you like loved the first book.
Okay.
I finished. I'm going to talk about a book that I think everybody should read. I've talked to you about it before.
Okay.
Sharp Objects.
Sharp Objects. Who's the author?
Gillian Flynn.
Oh, right. Gone Girl.
Sharp Objects was so good, Whitney.
Okay. I've not read any Gillian Flynn yet.
Oh, I get it. I get the hype.
Yeah. Okay.
It was so good. There are probably some like trigger warnings just for like some subjects in the book and everything, but I just ate it up.
You know, Gillian Flynn did a Gillian Flynn themed cruise.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually watched a YouTube video about it. I'm really big on watching rabbit holes on YouTube. That's my thing. I'll listen to an hour-long video while I do anything.
Yeah.
She did a cruise, and I think it was just part of the cruise was themed around Gone Girl and Gillian Flynn, but she did panels on the cruise ship.
That's really cool.
And you
actually
could just walk around and you'd see Gillian Flynn cool, having a glass of wine, whatever.
That's sick.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I was I've never heard of anyone doing that. I know that they do those rock cruises now where they'll have a festival on a cruise ship and stuff. I think those are cool. Didn't Weezer do one of those?
Yeah.
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 I think it's interesting. But yeah, I was a Gone Girl cruise. So yeah, I still haven't read Gillian Flynn, but I will add that one to my TBR.
Please. What are you reading?
I am about to finish Our Wives Under the Sea, which is by I actually can't remember her name. I'm so sorry. But I don't really think there's that many books called Our Wives Under the Sea.
Yeah.
But it is a book about two women who are married, and one of the women is a marine biologist.
Okay.
And she goes on a bunch of expeditions where she's in a submarine for a couple weeks at a time, whatever. This is just their life. And she goes on this expedition and their submarine just sinks. And they have no communication with anybody. And things happen to her that when she gets back, once they recover the submarine and the crew is still alive, her being one of them, it has changed her physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
And she's not the same person. And so the book is her wife going back and forth with the times of what it was before she went on this expedition, and now dealing with the way that her wife is now. And I'm at the end of the book, and you still really don't know what has happened yet. I have 30 pages left.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's a little insane.
Yeah.
I stayed up till 2 a.m. reading it last night, and I just I got so tired I couldn't make myself finish it. So I'm gonna finish it today once you leave.
Yeah.
But I did finish Rebecca. That was the last thing I was reading. I haven't had a lot of time to read the last couple of weeks. My what I read in June will be very short. But I finished Rebecca, which was one of the classics that I wanted to read this year, and it was fantastic. I read a lot of the reviews on Goodreads, and a lot of people seem to be very mixed, where they're like, nothing really happened in the first part of this book, which is like true, but I think a big part of Gothic literature is the build up and the atmosphere, and the book does a great job of that.
Yeah. That's like Sharp Objects. It's very Southern Gothic.
I have to read it then.
Yeah. It's very like modern Southern Gothic. So yeah.
But yeah, I think I gave Rebecca like 4.5 stars. The end of it just like blew my mind. It was fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was an awesome book.
Nice.
Yeah.
What else have you been enjoying?
Been playing Valorant again. That's what I would say takes up a lot of my free time right now. When I'm not reading, I'm playing Valorant.
You're getting mad at video games?
Yeah.
I'm getting very angry at video games.
I don't really get that angry.
No?
When I play by myself, I do. But if I'm playing with like friends, I can...
You have to control yourself.
I don't even control myself. I think I just have more fun when I'm with my friends, so I don't get angry as easily when something happens. I'm like, dang it.
Yeah.
So, trying to think. I've been listening to this like J-pop group that I really like put out an album, Tarashi Gakko. They put out an album that they're like doing a world tour for. I see them in October. It is a very good album. I actually think you would probably like it.
Okay, send it to me.
Yeah, I will. It's a really good album.
All right.
Been listening to that. I listened to the new Knocked Loose album a lot, obviously.
Yes. That's
been like in my current rotation a bunch.
Winnie, I have a question for you real quick.
Yeah.
Are you having a brat summer?
I am having a brat summer.
I am also having a brat summer. Very cool.
One of my coworkers asked me like every time I saw her for like 3, 4, or 5 times, she'd be like, Whitney, are you having a brat summer? And I'd be like, Kate, I'm not having a brat summer. I've not listened to the album yet. I was like, it's on my list, I promise. And then finally the other day I got in the car and I was like, you know what? I'll listen to Brat today. And I did. And I went, you know what? I'm going to have a brat summer.
Because that album rules.
It's a really good album.
It's so good.
Yeah. What about you? What else have you been enjoying?
So, I finished Sex and the City.
The show?
The show.
How was that?
That show rules. That show's awesome.
You should watch
The Carrie Diaries.
Yeah, I never watched Sex and the City, but I watched The Carrie Diaries when I was in high school. It's probably not as good as I remember it being, but I remember enjoying it as a teenage girl.
I plan to watch the movies.
Okay.
At least the first movie.
I've heard the movies are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember my mom like loving the Sex and the City movies.
Let's see. So I finished that, and then in the span of about 3 or 4 days, I watched all of The Good Place.
Oh wow. How was that? I've heard that show's pretty good.
That show was good. What really does it for me with that show is the characters. They're just all so delightful.
That's nice. I like that.
It takes like a minute to like get where we're going and everything. And it's a comedy.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to say this, and I just need you to stick with me. It is a comedy.
Okay.
I did not find myself really laughing.
I don't find myself laughing at a lot of things if I'm watching it. Like there's very rarely times where I like physically like laugh out loud. Sometimes you get like a but like that's it, you know.
Yeah, it was like a lot of like that and everything. But the story was like one of those where I wouldn't even say like, you know, it was super like it was well written, it was a well done like plot. And I needed to know where the plot was going and how it was presented to us was good and everything. And it was one of those where I just needed to like, I need to know what happens next.
Right.
I have to figure this out because you learn something in the first season and you're just like, well, yeah, I saw that coming. But then you're like, so what now? Yeah. And then it's the what now where it's just like, oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. What is that on? What is it streaming on?
It's on Netflix.
Netflix. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't have that one right now. Jack's mom turned it off.
Then I started The Wire.
Oh, The Wire. Oh, interesting. How's that?
The Wire is pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. I didn't realize how I knew it's like hoisted as like probably one of the best shows ever, like especially like crime shows and everything.
Right.
I didn't know like how much The Wire is referenced in stuff, because
okay.
I've seen 2 or 3 things very early on in season 1 where I was just like, I've seen jokes made about that. Specifically, have you ever seen How I Met Your Mother?
No.
Okay, never mind. There's a character in How I Met Your Mother who is walking down the street and she's whistling, and everybody on the streets runs away.
Okay.
And that was a reference to The Wire, where that same thing happens.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, I get it now. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you, because something you said earlier made me think about it. What are like your comfort TV shows that you can like go back and rewatch? And it doesn't matter how many times you've seen it, you're going to love it every time.
Love it every time.
Yeah.
Futurama.
Futurama is also one of mine.
That's a big one for me.
Yeah, same. I can literally watch any episode of that show and have a delightful time.
Yep. Mine are like all animated.
That's okay.
King of the Hill.
King of the Hill's a good one.
Love King of the Hill. I could throw that on any day of the week.
I know. If you come over, just like hang out 9 times out of 10, we end up watching King of the Hill.
If we're all talking and we're just like going to throw something on, like just throw on King of the Hill. It's a great time. A show that I still pay attention to now because I have restarted it, but it has become a comfort show, is The Venture Bros.
Venture Bros. I've not seen that.
It's definitely not something that's like episodic. It is and it isn't, but that has become a comfort show for me because I just love the characters and the story of it so much. And it's literally like I could throw it on like where I left off last time, and it's just like, all right, let's keep going.
Yeah. Love that.
What are some of yours?
I have some like ones that make sense and then ones that I think don't make sense.
Okay.
Actually, no, they probably do make sense. Arrested Development is one of mine.
Yeah.
Before Netflix picked it up.
Yeah.
After Netflix picked it up, I don't claim it. But those first like 2 seasons, comedy gold.
Yeah.
I love that show. I really do. That was like one of the things that like made me love Jason Bateman. Jason Bateman is like one of my like would ride or die for that man.
Yeah.
Adventure Time is one. Jack and I just rewatched all of that, and I ugly sob every time I finish that show.
Really?
Yeah, man, it's so good. It's so good. Supernatural. Up until about season 7. I watched that show.
I didn't know this.
Okay, listen.
Oh, wait, yes, I did. You were a super hulock.
Don't out me!
I did know this.
Don't out
We've had so many
me.
conversations. I was into Doctor Who. What do you mean?
I had a Matt Smith cardboard cutout in my room when I was a freshman in high school.
Dang, Whitney. I thought you were cool.
No. Anyways, Supernatural, I can watch the first like 7 seasons. I love that show. I love the start. I don't like any of the newer seasons. I stopped watching at a certain point when I stopped liking it. But I watched that show when I was like a really depressed teenager.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, like, I think that's a big part of like why I was like a part of like fandoms when I was growing up, was because like, especially my freshman year of high school, I went to a boarding school. And but I was like a day student, so I like commuted, but it was still like a 35-40 minute commute because I lived in the middle of the mountains, like the middle of nowhere. Yeah. And so even just to get to a friend's house, it was a 30-minute drive, and I'm like 15, I can't drive, I don't have a car. So a lot of my time was spent on Tumblr. I spent a lot of time online when I was in that age group. Yeah. And so I think I spent a lot of time in fandoms and like found solace in like Supernatural and Doctor Who and things like that because I had nothing else. Yeah. So that's why Supernatural is a comfort show. The Walking Dead is also a comfort show for me for that same reason. Yeah, I get that. Up until about, I'd say like season 4 or 5. That's about when I dropped off watching it as well. It's not a comfort show for me, but I used to be so into The Walking Dead. Those first 3 seasons, man, I could watch. Dude, they're good. All the time. Like, it's so good, and that's what Me and my best friend, like friend I've had for like 16 years now, her mom took us down to Sonoya one time where they filmed in like Woodbury.
Yeah.
Because that's like 2-3 hours from here.
Yeah.
And so we went down and we did like a whole tour and they took us to a bunch of filming locations. It was so cool. And I was like 14 years old having the time of my life doing that.
That's sick.
There was one time, one of my like dearest memories I have of my dad was we gone to Florida to visit my sister when she was living down there. And I remember this because we were using MapQuest.
Okay.
So my dad had printed out the instructions and we were coming back from Florida. And my dad, that man had a crazy sense of direction because he could drive us to and from Florida. No map, no navigation, whatever. Yeah. We're coming back up from Florida and my dad's like, hey, I have a place I want to stop on the way. Can you pull out the MapQuest from the glove box? I'm like, yeah. And so I start directing him to where we need to go. And we pull up and we're in the middle of Woodbury. And I was like, I like lost my mind. I was like, Dad, this is so cool. We ate at like Zach Brown Band's like restaurant. We were down there and we just like walked around. Of course, they have a bunch of like really kitschy stuff down there that's like for Walking Dead fans. And especially at this moment in time when it was like the most popular show on TV.
Yes, yeah.
And like, I mean, I couldn't get on the school bus without somebody talking about it. And especially like it's filmed in Atlanta. Chandler Riggs went to my rival high school.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah. And I went to Sunday school with him.
That's crazy.
So he went to my grandmother's church and I was like in Sunday school classes with him when we were like really itty bitty. Yeah. And so it's just, I mean, especially in Atlanta, that show like really blew up, but I knew it was crazy everywhere. Yeah. But that's like one of my fondest memories of my dad is like him like driving us to Sonoya. But I remember the MapQuest. That's crazy. Like where you literally had to print out pieces of paper to be like, love you turd.
I remember MapQuest.
Oh my God. We've come so far. But yeah, there's a couple of my comfort shows. I would also say like anything that was on Cartoon Network in that time. Yeah. Like I loved, and like Boomerang. Oh my God, I grew up on Boomerang. Like I love Tom and Jerry. But like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Yep. I love Dexter's Laboratory. Jack and I've been rewatching Chowder and The Misadventures of Flapjack. Yeah. Yeah. I remember you guys telling me about that. Yeah. Like whenever we're just like, we'll get like food or like I'll make dinner or something. We're like, okay, let's just sit down and watch something for like 15 minutes while we eat. That's like what we throw on. It's like those old Cartoon Network shows. Yeah. They all feel good in my soul.
Another comfort show for me is Seinfeld.
Nice. Haven't seen that one.
I just watched all of it like a year or two ago. And that's just another one of those shows like you're sitting around talking to people, you want to throw something on, throw on Seinfeld. Like it's always funny. Yeah. It's always funny. Well, maybe not always.
I was like, well.
But no, it is like solid all the way through though. Like for the most part, it is solid. It's just kind of great. Not a big fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Have you ever seen that?
I'm gonna say now, like I don't watch a lot of TV.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like I used to when I was younger, but like I will say as I've gotten into my 20s, I don't really watch a lot of TV. Yeah. Like I watched the new Fallout show and that's about like the newest thing I've watched in a long time.
Did you like it?
Oh, I loved it.
It's pretty good.
It made me like try to play Fallout, but I'm just not that type of game person.
Yeah.
I'm not really like a single first person shooter type.
That's fair.
Yeah. Story based. I don't know. Just let me click some heads. I'm fine.
I said something just a minute ago. I am not a fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't think that's not because there's anything wrong with the show. Okay. That's because there's something wrong with me. Where that style of comedy. Yeah. It makes me cringe because it's a lot of like awkward social interaction.
Oh, like The Office?
Worse.
Oh. Because like The Office was hard for me to get through. There are a lot of like moments in Curb where it's like so funny. Because you're watching somebody interact in a way that is so weird and bizarre. Is it like, what's that show?
It's like
I think Jack's tried to make me watch it, or maybe I don't think it was Jack.
Nathan For You.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I can't watch that show.
I like Nathan For You, which is a weird thing. I don't know why.
I think like my ex-partner made me watch that show, and I was like, can we please turn this off? Like I feel uncomfortable.
Have you watched?
And the one with the dog. The guy dressed as a dog.
Oh, Wilfred?
Yes, I hated that.
You hated that?
I wouldn't say I hated it. I disliked it. Made me uncomfortable.
I never got it super into it. Yeah. I know the ending of that show for some reason.
I don't know anything about that show besides the fact that I didn't like it.
But like, yeah. So strange. That sounded like an elephant.
Public transportation.
Public transportation. Whitney, how do you feel about Hatsune Miku again?
I love her.
That's good.
I love her so much.
You didn't end up going to that concert, right? No.
I couldn't. I watched the tickets all day to see if they had dropped below $50, I would have gone.
I heard some people complaining about it.
Oh, a lot of people complained about Miku Expo this year.
Yeah.
Because they changed the screen.
Yeah.
Because she used to be more of like a hologram, and then they put her on like a flat screen this year.
Mm-hmm. Which is weird.
So, yeah, really strange. A lot of people, like, sold their tickets once they found out. So I was looking at resales, literally, and, like, I will watch concert tickets for a whole day to decide if I'm going to go or not.
Yeah.
And I was like, if these drop below $50, I will go.
You're going.
And I never saw them drop below $75.
Ooh.
And I was like, I'm not going to pay $70 to, like, go watch a YouTube video.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just really wanted one of the light sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the creator of the Miku Beam song was at the Atlanta show.
Oh, okay.
And one of my favorite videos is on their Twitter, that artist's Twitter. And it's literally him at the show, and he's like screaming the lyrics at the top of his lungs, and he's like screaming and like laughing maniacally.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, dude, I would have the same reaction if Miku was singing my song in front of me. Oh my God.
That's so cool.
It was so cool. It's one of my favorites. I'll show it to you.
Do you have any concerts coming up?
Going to see Paris tonight.
Oh, yeah.
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 I've been seeing Paris since, well, I would say the first time I saw them was at the Tabernacle in downtown Atlanta. Mm-hmm. When they opened up for Pierce the Veil and Sleeping with Sirens on that joint tour.
We are learning a lot about your character today, Whitney.
Dude, that was peak, like, emo kid days.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, to see Sleeping with... Like, they played King for a Day and Kellen Quinn came out on stage. That was, like, the peak of my life when I was, like, 14.
That's awesome.
But Paris opened up for them. I don't know what year that tour was. But I fell in love with Paris at that show. And then I saw them at Warped Tour, I think, like 2 or 3 times. And then I have seen Paris pretty much every other time they've come to Atlanta. I did not see them last year. Mm-hmm. But I literally got a text yesterday about, hey, are you going to see them tomorrow night? And I am off work tonight. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah. And I looked at the set list, and they're actually playing like a lot of their older songs that I really like, and I was like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna go to this.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm doing that. Atarashi got go in October. But other than that, I don't really think I have anything on my list. What about you?
I'm going to see, I'm going to go see the Cowboys.
Oh, I am also going to that.
I'm going to go see Cowboys because Omerta is coming with them.
Yes, that's for those of you that don't know, I said Cowboys in the last episode or one of the episodes and then like didn't speak on it. I used to be in a band called the Callous Cowboys. It's a mathcore band.
They're very good. I enjoy their music a lot. Yeah,
it's very like chaotic metal if mathcore means nothing to you. And if you don't like metal, I don't think you will like it. However, I wrote the album Celebrity Therapist with them. I was in the band for that and was like touring on the Die on Mars album. And so wrote Celebrity Therapist. I'm not a part of the band anymore. Still really good friends with everyone in the band though. And so obviously whenever they come through town, I go and see them and hang out with them. And so they're coming through with See You Space Cowboy is the headliner of that tour.
Yes.
And Omerta is part of the support. And I love Omerta.
You introduced me to Omerta and...
Dude, I saw them. They played on my birthday in Atlanta in 2022, and there was like maybe 30 people in the room.
That's insane.
And they're so awesome.
Dude, because I remember asking you, I was like, Wendy, I'm trying to get more into metal stuff.
Yeah.
What do you recommend? And you said, I think you would really like Omerta.
Yeah, because you like hyperpop, and Omerta is like a hyper-violence band.
Yeah.
Or, well, what's the right word? Hyperviolence is the name of like a song/album. God, I can't think of the right term, but it's like something violence is like the genre.
There's like glitchy,
they have that
influence.
Aspect. Yeah, which is why I think they call themselves like hyperviolence.
Yeah.
I'm probably saying all the wrong things here, but I don't know if anyone listening to this podcast cares enough about this very niche genre to correct me.
I hope we get really, really angry metalheads.
It's fine if we do. Yeah. I've been dealing with them for like 8 years now. But yeah, I love Omerta. I'm really excited to see them again because they actually came through. They were supposed to be here last year, the year before, and then their tour bus broke down like 4 days before their date here. Yeah, so they had to cancel. It was really sad. But you know, it happens. So I'm really excited to see them this time around, though.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
You want to call it?
Yeah, I'm sweaty. We have to turn my AC off whenever we record because it's so loud, and I'm cooking. I'm cooking right now.
All right.
Yeah, if you made it this far, thanks for listening to us yap and getting to know us.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Listenercast. Like we said earlier, we really appreciate all the feedback and support we've gotten so far. It genuinely really does mean a lot. Yeah. Do you have anything to say?
Just a reminder, give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, share with your friends. If you want to get somebody into the Stormlight Archives, if you have anybody interested in maybe what we're doing, you know, kind of just going along moderately, like at a moderate pace and everything with it. Tell them, let them know, you know, we'd love some more interactions. Email will be in the description. You can also DM us on Instagram, comment on YouTube, give us your thoughts. Yeah. Bye.
I was wondering how long you were going to keep doing that.
All right. I have to use ways to get here because I don't remember how to do Y sound.
Sounds
Whitney,
good.
Jordan.
It sounds good.
Crabs.
Wait. The Mikus fell off.
No. I don't know if they're going to survive, Whitney.
They will.
Nope. Damn, one's falling.
No! Now I know what to do.
Now we can do it?
Yes.
All right.